This episode of We Are Libertarians is brought to you by Audible.com. Enjoy one free audiobook courtesy of We Are Libertarians. Choose from more than 100,000 audiobook titles, including works by Ron Paul, Walter Block, Murray Rothbard, and the Cato Institute. Audible.com also has audio of radio and TV programs and audio versions of magazines and newspapers. You can get the Audible app on any mobile device or download the audio to your computer. Go to audibletrial.com/WAL or head to WeareLibertarians.com and find the link to get one free month of Audible today. Welcome to We Are Libertarians for this week, episode 90-ish, I think, and also the triumphant return to LRN.FM. So I want to thank all the folks over there, the guys from Free Talk Live, for putting us back on the network and paying attention to the podcast feed. So Ian noticed that we were being a little more regular. And he signed us right back up for LRN.FM, so we're really pleased to be back there. So thank you to everybody there. So go check them out. A lot of great libertarian podcasts. Let me tell you who is on this podcast, because we have a rotating cast of characters. I am your host, the president of all libertarians, as an Indianapolis City County Councilor seriously introduced me one time. I'm Chris Spangle. To my left is Greg Lenz, Mr. Reliable. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Chris. How are you?
Also, scumbag Republican of the podcast.
Ever since Creighton left.
Yeah. Creighton may be returning soon, so we hope to see...
The re-return of Creighton?
The re-return. We may even have Chris Galt back soon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He and I are in talks. We're in negotiations. His writer is a little bit too detailed. Some things I can't provide.
Fluoride-free toothpaste is a lot to ask.
Unfluoridated water and only Google products in my apartment are a little too much, Chris, but we're still working at the finer details. That is a big callback for people who have heard
huge fans of the show.
Huge fans of the show will get that
They'll
when everybody
remember
else is
Chris
scratching their head.
Or
Hi, Sam Lotes.
Or our few fans who listen to our back catalog.
Now, the two monotone voice, they're two... Well, one is freshly shaven.
Yeah.
Usually the bearded brothers Peffer.
Yeah. You didn't see me a week ago.
This
is freshly shaven.
That is Chris Peffers. And Daniel.
Yeah, hello. How you doing?
Dan Peffers are here. Dan sits in with us quite often. Chris, he sits in and just makes smart-ass comments, and that's why he's one of my favorite contributors.
He used to be a bigger
That's what I do my whole
me.
life.
He's like...
I just wandered in here.
I just wandered into places.
Yeah, wandered in, saw a microphone, started making smart-ass remarks.
Spangle lives here.
I haven't seen that guy in forever.
Hey, what's up,
We used
bro?
to have a show we were on.
Hey, what are these microphones doing here?
Whoa.
Well, we're going to try and make the news happy and fun and have a good time, but we have a lot of serious business to cover today, ladies and gentlemen. What should we start with first? Should we start with Putin, or should we start with ISIS and Syria?
Well, let's start with something less depressing and talk about Putin. He's always fun to watch.
Putin sounds more like a finisher, though.
Putin.
I think people are more interested in the intergalactic doom that is brought on by ISIS. Let's start
Perhaps.
Want to start with ISIS?
Let's start with ISIS.
All right.
They do sound like G.I. Joe would be fighting them or something.
Yeah, so we go to our resident expert, the one on the podcast who reads the news, Greg Lenz, to fill us in a little bit of the details.
Why am I not given the benefit of the doubt?
I watched The Daily Show.
Yeah.
Right.
I actually read
well-informed.
news this week.
All right, good.
You're up.
Greg's better at this.
Pefferini. Pefferini is up.
I just wanted better benefit of the doubt. Greg can take this.
No.
You've heard of a publication
prepared.
called The Onion?
I've read every article for 3
Oh,
weeks.
yeah, every
straight.
ISIS article on The Onion. And let me tell you, Well, basically... Wow,
he's going to give it a shot.
I'm giving it a shot.
All right. This better be good.
Yeah, basically what's going on is ISIS has taken control of several oil fields. And they've decided that ruling is a much more profitable venture than conquering.
That is true. So ISIS, what do you really remember? Because I didn't get a chance to go back and listen to our last episode about ISIS. What were some of the points that we kind of covered? Did we cover the makeup of the group?
Yeah, how it's mainly being led militarily by the Ba'ath Party, former generals under Saddam.
So we have a podcast a few episodes ago where we kind of go through some of the makeup. But here's who ISIS is. It's the Islamic State. Their goal is to create a caliphate, an Islamic State. So they are not like Al Qaeda, where their goal is to commit terrorist acts on Western countries and to try and get them to leave and move their bases out of those countries, like the 3 bases we have in Saudi Arabia. ISIS, their goal is to create an Islamic State. So ISIS stands for Islamic State of Syria, or Islamic State of the Levant, which define Levant, please.
Levant is like the Levantine states of northern Africa, some of the Mediterranean, Morocco, Turkey, and then going into almost all of the Middle East, all the way over to like Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan.
So what is
Afghanistan?
Levantine? Then?
Levantine states. Those are the states mainly around the Mediterranean, or after the Sykes-Picot Treaty.
Okay,
after
part of the
World War I.
Roman Empire, but not part
Ottoman,
of Europe.
more Ottoman Empire.
More? Oh, okay, so kind of
Yeah.
Byzantine.
Yep, exactly.
Right.
All right.
Their goal is to unite, the Middle East. The region is unique, which is why it should be. It should seemingly be easier for them to come to mutual agreement as a region, because they have a common language, they have a common religion, they have common. I wouldn't say common values, but the majority of the region does share, because it's so religiously driven. It does share many common values and goals. It's just to varying degrees, many social norms, I guess, and a very rich history. So you would think that this region would be easier for them to come to an agreement on various issues, but it's just not. The 2 major players are Saudi Arabia and Iran. They seem to bicker and pick on each other and indoctrinate their various factions across the region against each other. But they now have a uniting enemy, along with the United States and the West, in ISIS. So ISIS is anywhere from 10 to 20,000 troops, I guess, recruits, and that's probably grown. And they are social media savvy, so that's one way that they are different than past groups like the Muslim Brotherhood, like
They're master trolls.
master
Well,
trolls.
master
yes.
trolls.
Well, it'd be interesting to know if they were actual soldiers or if they were just insurgents. One distinction I heard when I was in the military was that insurgents are just people who are fighting. They haven't been trained in it. But soldiers, like a lot of people were of the opinion that Hezbollah was a actual military organization, because these people were trained in using the weaponry that they had. If they were overwhelmed, they would actually stand and fight and use actual military tactics.
I would say that the Islamic State is probably more of a military at this point, because they have common uniforms, common tactics, they have a home base, they have top-down organization, they have
Our weaponry.
our
Our training.
A lot of people have our weaponry and training.
They now have years of experience, so since the
Yeah, it sounds like they want to rule.
That's the whole point. They have to.
Yeah, so Islamic State again has grown into the main face of this wish of a caliphate, and they have sort of an acquisitions and mergers. A year or 2 ago, John McCain was meeting with members of ISIS, calling them freedom fighters against Assad. If you go back and look at our podcast when we talked about Syria a year ago, we were talking about, are they going to go to war in Syria and get rid of Assad? And who are these rebels and these freedom fighters? Well, the United States government was qualifying ISIS and some of the people that are fighting for ISIS now as those rebels and those freedom fighters. And John McCain is getting his picture taken with them. And one of the heads of communication for ISIS is in the photo with John McCain.
Politicians really know how to take an embarrassing photo op that they're going to deeply regret in a few years.
So the way that they, over the last year, have developed into a strong military presence is a couple of ways. So they start in Syria as a small group, but they decide that they're going to use social media as a weapon. much like most libertarians do. And so...
Some we know.
There are some strong similarities between libertarians on social media and ISIS members.
Yeah. Don't say that too loudly. Our listeners at the NSA might not be too keen on that.
So the Islamic State...
I saw you look at the time. Are you going to edit this out?
No. The Islamic State is a very brutal group. This is an edit-free podcast, much to the chagrin of many.
Oh, really?
Yeah, thanks to Gina.
So, yeah.
Gina finally broke Spangle down. He just said, screw it. That's too much editing.
Yep,
Or
I
the
can't do it.
HBO of libertarian podcasts.
That's right. Take that, Jacob Hornberger. So, ISIS posts many of their victories. They post many of their successes. Unfortunately, sadly, many of their successes are beheadings and just outright brutality, crucifixions. And so they, for whatever reason amongst the base in our society, that somehow becomes attractive. And it also serves them another purpose. They have what Genghis Khan had at one time, where Genghis Khan would just kill an entire village and send one person from the village to the next village and say, my entire village is dead, and you're next. And so the entire village would just surrender. And so what's happened across Syria and northwestern Iraq is just that. So they will go in, they will take over the village, they will commit all these horrible atrocities, they'll tweet it out, and they'll make sure that it gets to the next village that they're coming. So they really have kind of mastered the brutality of war and are using social media. And one of the other drawbacks / benefits, according to their view, is they now are posting pictures. Let's say you're a young man who wants to join ISIS.
Yeah,
you go not you.
He is bearded.
He is bearded. He is. I'm just saying.
You have to grow it out a little bit.
You get caught up in the idealism of it, and you're this angry, young, disconnected man. I mean, for many of the reasons that someone would join a gang here in the United States is why someone would join ISIS.
And a lot of them feel purpose.
Right.
That's the big driver.
It gives them purpose, and it's also connected to religion, which is a powerful influencer. And so their initiation is filmed and blasted out to YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and many other social media sites. Well, that doesn't come down. That doesn't come back. And so they essentially have your blackmail to keep you involved because it's already out there. Why leave now? Because you can't. Because what are you going to go do? Go back to Britain or the United States or Saudi Arabia?
You'd have to at least go someplace where nobody knows you.
Right. And
you might spend the rest of your days in Malaysia running a liquor store.
In the world of social media, where is that place anymore? So it's
not on Twitter.
Right. So it's a very powerful tool. As much as we have talked about the power of good in social media, as we did a couple episodes, ISIS has mastered all the horrible drawbacks of social media. So it is interesting that this group of 10 to 20,000 people, which is a very small number, has captured the world's attention and has all the world's nations wanting to go after them. There's more gang members in certain gangs here in the United States. There's the cartels in Mexico are much bigger than
the Mormons.
The Mormons.
Yeah.
Look at the Mormons, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Canada.
33, they're all trying to get their own planets, too.
33 million of those bastards up north, those pasty bastards who consider ham to be bacon.
And 90% of them are positioned right along our border.
98%.
98%.
See, you learn facts. So, the question, so their goal is to rule, and they they go into these towns, they start levying taxes that helps them generate income town by town. They also kidnap,
ransom,
and demand ransom. European nations pay it, companies pay it. The United States, sadly, as we learned with James Foley, does not pay it.
Yeah, clarified European nations.
Yeah, well, I honestly, you want James Foley to come back to his parents, who seem like the greatest people on the face of the earth, for God's sake, mean, these people come out and, pray for the captors and we forgive you, and it's just, these people are angels. But if you give ISIS $130 million or $5 million, they're just going to use it to kidnap more people.
Yeah.
So it's one of the catch-22s of the world, of, life. I want my son back, but if I give them money, someone else's son will die. It's the Sophie's choice.
2.
So 2, 4, 6,
And
8.
most parents would probably trade 2 other kids for their own any day of the week.
So
2 Peffers for a Spangle.
right, I think that's a fantastic trade.
No, I don't think it's a fantastic
You
trade.
would, Spangle.
A Peffers is worth quite a bit.
If I'm gone,
There's
who's-
2 of you. It's worth half.
Where's this beard?
Chris?
gonna be?
There's
Do you
not
know
a
how to
high
run this
supply of
equipment? If
Peffers.
I go, We Are Libertarians goes, okay?
Is that what this is?
The world can't live without We Are Libertarians.
So if ISIS kidnaps one of us, you are the most essential personnel, is what you're
They're
saying.
in trouble. I hope they come after me. Oh, are they in trouble?
Yeah, I don't think they can really do a
Let
whole
me tell
hell
you
of a
something.
lot.
Greg carries
in Indiana.
bacon in his pocket.
Oh, yeah. I will make bacon grenades
Aw.
and launch them all over them. I will make sure that every station is on only gay pornography. It will be an absolute nightmare for them.
You say that like it isn't already.
Oh,
I've walked
He's
by.
got it prepared in case they drop in on him.
oh yeah.
A pigskin welcome, man.
He's got a fallout shelter, but it's nothing but gay porn and bacon.
Oh boy.
just a bacon weave
It
welcome
is a
mat.
hell of a-
You got to step
hell of
on
a
the
fallout
bacon mat.
shelter.
I will
You're gonna
just sit
come in.
there. I would be like Socrates in Athens during the trial and be like, "So your prophet sold carpet. Tell me how that makes him holy."
Anybody else think we should send Greg over there right now to solve the entire crisis?
Yeah, you could go there with the Westboro Baptist Church. You guys hear about that challenge?
I did. They're
that
going over there.
backfired?
They
No,
are.
the-
Oh,
I'll tell you what.
What's happened? What?
I'll give them Kansas if they go over there and beat ISIS.
All right, what happened now? Explain
some
this.
Australian comedian told them to put their money where their mouth was. He was going to fly a bunch of them to Iraq when he heard they were protesting Robin Williams' funeral.
Right.
And a bunch of them accepted on Twitter, but last I heard, the comedian backed out.
Did he?
He's donating the money to charity or something. Like a big
Boo.
old wuss, right?
Yeah.
Right.
How often are the Westboro Baptist Church the good guys?
Trust me, if he's involved in corporate broadcasting, there's no way legal's going to clear sending the Westboro Baptist Church to Syria. So,
Be hard to get a
he
flight
said
in.
it, he
Yeah.
said out of his personal
Yeah,
funds.
he was going to do it out of his money.
yeah, like that matters.
That'd probably be accomplice to murder in international law.
Here at We Are Libertarians,
No
we
kidding.
promise you that if we say we're going to send the Westboro Baptist Church, we're going to send them to Syria.
Yeah.
We just don't have any money.
No, that's where Kickstarter.
That's right. If you want to PayPal Chris Spangle at gmail.com, you PayPal, we'll send them to Syria.
No, you gotta say they.
He'll let
they
you
got-
know exactly when you have enough money.
Right.
They're wanting to go to Syria to protest.
It may
the-
take 5 or 7 years and tens of donations to get there, but we will.
But I mean, they're wanting to go over to Syria and protest terrorists, and I mean, I gotta
Are
say
they terrorists?
there's some brass balls.
Well, they're protesting
They
the way
are
that
trying to set
Christians
up
are
a
being
state,
treated.
therefore they are terrorists.
Is that terrorist to be so to try
but
and
they're trying
Overthrow
to
your
rule.
government.
I would say Al Qaeda is a terrorist state, or Hezbollah, or even Hamas. Since they
I
have no
am
intention
agreeing
of
with
ruling.
you on all those. I-
Well, you're talking about using terror through social media to spread their message.
I mean,
Like,
they go into these towns and they terrorize the towns.
they wouldn't
and-
be so brutal if they
The,
weren't
these,
trying to
the
spread
reason they're
terror.
successful is because the Sunnis have been slaughtered by the Shias in Iraq, and the Sunnis cannot wait. For
Well,
those
yeah, but
people.
you're
They've lowered the price of oil
slaughtering
50% in most
their
cities.
villages.
all a terrorist is somebody who leverages violence for a greater effect. The reason why 9/11 was such an effective attack was not because so many people died. Is actually relatively little compared to how many people died in the resulting traffic accidents from the increase in highway use. What happened is you get these people or these planes falling out of the sky, and everybody panics.
But ISIS doesn't do that. ISIS is a military that goes in and wins
there was
military in
beheadings.
each town.
We were just talking about beheadings and whatnot. Beheadings are
being
very
spread over.
Sure, that's an
social media.
execution.
yeah,
Well, they're
but
But
spreading
then
it.
Saudi Arabia
they're
does the same
spreading
thing.
it on
Are they
social-
terrorists?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if they do that,
If
they're terrorists.
It sounds like they're trying to terrorize people with
Yeah.
these
Yeah,
posts and these pictures, and
these deaths are not in order to goose the number.
But would
of
the
deaths.
United States military be that when we drop bombs from the sky from remote control airplanes?
no, because
That
we're not
isn't-
spreading pictures on Facebook about this is what we'll do to your country.
Yeah, we put people in jail who spread them on Facebook.
Okay,
Right.
I will agree with you that
That
it's
just
their
makes us
moral
oppressive.
equivalence. It just doesn't not qualify as terrorism, but it qualifies as warfare because they are committing an act that is getting a proportional amount of fear out of it. They're not bombing because that evokes a certain amount of fear. They're bombing because they're trying to cause a certain amount of economic impact to the country. Now, beheading somebody and posting the video online is to evoke fear with a single death. And same with the Dzhokhar and Tamerlan Tsarnaev with their bomb. It actually injured relatively few people compared to whomever dies in an average bombing, but it evoked a lot more fear out of the population. So it was a lot more fear was accomplished with very little violence, and therefore that it's just a method of leveraging violence.
I guess I see that. For me, I feel like they're I don't think we've been. I think the entire obviously since the president came out and said we don't have a strategy yet, but we're working on it. You know,
at least
right.
he admits it.
I mean,
I will give Obama that. At least he admits that there's no strategy.
And I feel
Bush
bad for him
never
because it was
did
a
that.
total
That's true.
it was a total admission of honesty.
I don't
You know, it was one of the he has sat through probably meeting after meeting after briefing after briefing with the smartest foreign policy analysts in the world, and he's between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
Do you
Well-
support a
well, let's-
genocidal dictator in Syria or ISIS?
Well, let's get back to the region, and then we'll bring it on back home here. We'll talk about the two situations politically, but can you? I don't think a lot of people understand the difference between Sunni and Shia. Mm-hmm. So it is a huge factor in this. Can you explain the difference between a Sunni and a Shia? How does it factor into all this and the politics of the entire region?
So the central split between Sunni and Shia comes down to Muhammad never naming a clear successor. So Sunni Muslims, who are the vast majority, the huge majority, ended up following Muhammad's essentially right-hand man or consigliere. Now, Shia Muslims followed the husband of Muhammad's daughter Fatima, and that's Ali. And so the Muslim-Sunni split, or the Sunni-Shia split, started when different followers followed different leaders because he didn't delineate which should be the
So
successor.
their schism happened very, very early.
Immediately following his death.
Yeah.
And
Which was what? Is it 600?
yeah, and
That's how you know you're going to have a cohesive bunch.
Right, in the 600s.
and if he had just had a son, it would have been very easy. This would have all been settled. But because he had a daughter,
So many wives and no sons.
yeah, so he just had a daughter, and then there was a split, and the minority followed Ali, who is who are Shia Muslims, and then Ali is so they've had caliphates through the years. They've been leaders, and for the Shias, Ali is the first caliphate. For the Sunnis, he's the fourth. And he was martyred in Karbala in Iraq while trying for passage. And so that is where this is going. Iran is a Shia state. The Ba'ath Party and Saddam Hussein were Shias who dominated a Sunni minority in Iraq and slaughtered them. So the last president of Iraq, or prime minister, al-Maliki, he was tolerable to Sunnis, he was tolerable to Shias, and then he was tolerable to the Kurds.
So
That's why we
But
had him, propped him up.
he was also completely incompetent, and he eroded and actively discouraged anybody who was competent because he wanted to try and maintain power. So part of the problem, the reason that ISIS has been able to thrive in Iraq is because he has eliminated or moved out of the way or let be killed, let's put it that way, so many people who could have been strong leadership on one side or the other. He wanted to kind of consolidate power for himself.
Yep, and then the Iraqi army, especially in the northwestern region towards Syria, where they've had the success and have taken Mosul, and then almost took a dam that would have been devastating. So they took this dam.
I heard that was wired up with a bunch of explosives.
Yeah, and then luckily the Peshmerga, the Kurdistan fighting force.
Yeah, that's right, I think.
Yeah.
The Kurds are actually a very good fighting force. I mean, ISIS is an untrained fighting force. Malarkey, He dismantled a lot of the strength of the military because, again, he wanted to maintain power.
And he didn't want any one of Saddam's generals to be in the party. That was a big thing.
And so what has happened in recent days, essentially, is the airstrikes emboldened and kind of rose up some of those the Iraqi military fighting force. And the Kurds, because they've had to fight for survival from the Sunni and Shia for so many generations, they're a very experienced fighting force and have been able to take on ISIS. And
they're like a pocket of the Western world in the middle of Iraq.
And they're also funded by the Iranians and the Americans.
Mm-hmm. So Shiites are basically the Jehovah's Witnesses of the Muslims.
They're not necessarily the Jehovah's Witnesses. They're
kind of an offshoot.
They're more like Baptists in the Catholic Church, or Jesuits in the Catholic Church. I mean,
super conservative.
No, not in just in terms of demographics. So the Catholics, most people on the planet are Catholic. If you're saying Christians, most Christians are Catholic.
Yeah, and Protestants I think outnumber, but Protestants are very split.
Not on the face of the planet.
Oh, not on the face of the planet.
In the totality of the planet, Catholicism rules, and then
they have a lot of kids,
and then they have a lot of money, and money is power. And
Brownsburg, St. Malachy has a huge presence in Brownsburg, and you meet all these people in high school who have 6 or 7 brothers and sisters, just because they go to the St. Malachy.
So so Sunnis,
it's not just because of
so
that.
Sunnis are the broad. I mean, so Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Egypt, those are more Sunni countries, where Shia countries are more towards Iran.
Iran and Iraq were the only two.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
Iran and Iraq are the only two. And then really the only reason, and that demographic is changing rapidly right now. Like that's why the northern Iraq's been so easy to take. These are Sunni villages that have been slaughtered because al-Maliki was facing a very uncertain re-election. And so he went around and ordered the military to start slaughtering Sunnis because they were political dissidents.
Wow.
Hence the rise of ISIS and the reason they were able to walk right into towns. And you can get on YouTube. It was parades. It wasn't like they came in and like blew up government. These people were worshiping them for coming in.
Including Mosul, which is
the second biggest
city. So, you think about it, Sunni countries are Pakistan, Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia really is kind of, it rose over time, mainly because of oil wealth and connection to the United States, as the centerpiece of the Sunni world, and because it also houses many of the religious sites for the Muslim faith. They also, as the United States is sort of a moral center or sort of a generator of thinking for the Western world, Saudi Arabia really is a place where a lot of thought leaders are produced, and the kingdom in Saudi Arabia has really done a lot over the last few decades to poison the well towards Shia Muslims. So curriculums, lectures, universities, news programs, it's all slanted against Shia and Iran. And so Iran obviously is hostile back towards that. And so it is ironic that they all now kind of find themselves in an anti-ISIS.
And so like Osama bin Laden, and that was the real difference that's the biggest difference between ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda arose sort of as a terrorist arm of the Muslim Brotherhood. And the reason why was because the United States established a base in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and we were essentially the world's fighting force. ISIS started out as the Al-Qaeda affiliate in Iraq and was disavowed because they wanted to rule. And Osama bin Laden thought a lot about this and wrote about it, talked about it. The biggest problem with ruling is you have to be able to feed the people. Mm-hmm. And so he never wanted Al-Qaeda to get into a position where it could get desperate, not be able to provide economically, and then support for Al-Qaeda would fall. Al-Baghdadi, the leader in the caliphate of the Islamic State, has grand designs for the region. The problem with that is, though, you cannot be a citizen of Saudi Arabia. You cannot be a citizen of Egypt. You can't be a citizen of Lebanon, Morocco, Jordan, Iran. Any of them, because their interpretation of the Quran is that there is to be one government. any like they don't support ISIS does not support Hamas because they consider it apostate. It's out of Allah's will that you would have the separation of church and state.
So they're anarchistic?
No, they
They're
want
theological
they're theocratic.
No, very theocratic.
Just,
they're the opposite. They're
So it's basically just Sharia law.
It's Vatican on a grand scale.
Okay.
right. Yeah, it is.
It's
it is
like
a
good old-fashioned Judaism back in the day.
The Holy Roman Empire in the Middle Ages, because the Holy Roman Empire was the center of religion and political power in Germany, Austria,
Charlemagne and whatnot.
Right, exactly. And so that is essentially what they want to set up now.
And it's not one like they have to, or they are out of Allah's will. So like that's
Right.
the driving force for a lot of these, even doctors, lawyers, attorneys from Britain that are very devout are flooding in because they are called by their religion.
Right.
If they could manage to stabilize the area, then I could see them becoming more moderate over the years. Because, well, the thing is, if they can stabilize the region, the economy will improve.
That's
And
like 60 years off.
And it might be sooner, though. The thing about social media is it causes ideas to spread around the globe like a plague.
So here's my, after thinking a lot about this, because a week ago, it was clear that the last episode that we recorded, I don't know what day it was, it was when it was like 30 minutes after we started recording was when we got the message that James Foley had been beheaded. And that, when you get that kind of news and there's video and that CNN's going to start talking about it, that that's going to be the dominant story. And eventually Ferguson waned, and now this is the hot topic. Should we go to war with Syria? Should we go to war with ISIS? Should we go to war in Iraq again? After doing some research and kind of thinking about it.
We were out of Iraq for, what, a year and a half?
We were never out of Iraq. We
still have troops there.
It's like
anyone believe that?
The embassy there is 10 times larger than any other embassy in the world. It's or something
$1 billion
ridiculous.
embassy.
It's like $1 billion embassy. It's
all
enormous.
those Iraqi tourists we got to get out of.
Right.
Yeah, I bet all their staffers are soldiers, too. They're probably all in uniform.
They're military consultants.
Yeah, I mean...
Well, some of them are supply guys, but they know how to fire a weapon and take orders. That's for sure.
I mean, we're clearly in the region. We tried to save James Foley. We're probably trying to save Steve Solotkov, the other prisoner of war, or the other reporter, the journalist who's been captured by ISIS. So here's sort of where I think it's going with ISIS, and why I don't really think the United States, and what role the United States could play, or should play, or may play, or whatever. The conventional wisdom amongst the talking heads and politicians and the warmongers is that we should get involved militarily. We should go in and we should bomb the crap out of ISIS. We should kill as many ISIS people as possible. And that's about the extent of their rationale, because more killing is going to fix the problem, right? Because it always has. It always has.
Oh,
since the beginning of time.
But if you think about it in a different way, and you look at it in a different way, and realize that American involvement in the Middle East has not necessarily worked out all that well, because we went in to kill to get rid of Al-Qaeda, and then we created ISIS.
Yeah.
We in fact gave them all of their weapons inadvertently, and are giving them money. And
if we're to review the
Right.
Taliban's and Al-Qaeda's story, they tend to be rather similar.
Well, isn't
Right.
that the graveyard of empires?
Afghanistan, which we
Yeah.
leave in 4 months.
Do we?
Do we? Yeah.
Yeah. So ISIS their grand design is to rule, and they're in Syria. They're spreading into Iraq. Their grand plan is to encompass northern Africa, the Middle East, Turkey,
Spain,
Afghanistan, Pakistan, into India,
all right, up to Russia.
and into China and Russia. So you're telling me
Why
that...
stop there?
That's
Good point. So this...
Now, the Mongol
can't.
Empire learned very quick, when you spread yourself thin and you still manage to hold the territory, the culture will conquer you.
That is my point.
Oh,
So-
sorry.
No, it's okay. They are spreading themselves, at this point, they've spread themselves into friendly territory. But you've noticed that they haven't moved into the predominantly Shia Baghdad,
Yeah,
where
if they
it
get Spain.
where it would be inner city fighting, where it would be slaughter, and they've only got 10 to 20,000 people.
Urban warfare is the hardest warfare.
It would be long, and that would be their Waterloo. That would be the end of this group.
And they're not dumb.
And they're not dumb. So their plan is to try, and they're hoping to draw the United States in, because when the United States hits them, that legitimizes them. That draws in recruits, because then it's no longer Sunni versus Shia or town versus ISIS. It's now the United States and the world versus Muslims.
And the problem with bombing campaigns is that just reeks of we're out of ideas.
Sure. Well, that's the first instinct always. There is no military solution. This is from the Council on Foreign Relations, which is generally the thought leader on what the United States should bomb next. And the Council on Foreign Relations in the New York Times is basically saying, hey, there's no military solution. There's no way to bomb or to put boots on the ground or to militarily end ISIS. You're only going to make it worse. You're only going to embolden them. Their solution, which the extent of what some in the Council on Foreign Relations, from what I read, is it needs to be a regional solution. It needs to be the leaders of the Middle East, countries like Jordan, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, United Arab Emirates, Qatar.
See,
that misses the point. They cannot, because they're apostate.
But work together to defeat ISIS.
Oh, I got you.
I think
they're going to.
The only, and they say the only role that the United States should play in it is working to broker some of these deals, working to bring people to the table to discuss it. But military involvement in the situation is only going to make it worse.
See, I think we should be less involved in that. Sorry, you go ahead. I can wait on my point.
You were talking like only 10 to 20,000 people. Like, they're not an immediate threat to us right now, I would say.
Absolutely not. No.
Like,
the only danger that ISIS presents to the United States homeland is that there are members of the United States, countrymen of the United States, that are fighting with ISIS and Britain, and they have passports so they can easily come back.
Oh, yeah.
Now, there were two guys who got killed who were fighting with ISIS, one from Minneapolis, and I forget where the other one was Douglas MacArthur, of all people. And Douglas Arthur McCain, was that what it was?
Yeah.
Something like that. Douglas Arthur McCain. And he was on the front lines. So clearly they don't value that as a very high asset if he's fighting on the front lines. If he's a United States citizen, then why put him on the front lines? Why not use him in some other capacity? Instead, you're just sticking him out where he's obviously going to get killed.
See, these guys are not suicide bombers.
Yeah, it seems like that's another thing I was thinking. They might recruit more people because they're not asking people to kill themselves.
They are not suicide bombers. And the other thing is that I would put that 10 to 20,000 more at like 40 to 60, because the Al-Nusra Front, all of the resistance operations in like Tunisia, Somalia, Boko Haram in Nigeria, they're going to eventually join ISIS, because whatever you name yourself is kind of irrelevant. It's who's having success. Mm-hmm. And right now, the Al-Nusra Front has pretty much quit in Syria and joined ISIS.
Well, it's like in Lord of War, everybody's a freedom fighter.
Everyone's a freedom fighter. And so even the Free Syrian Army is going to fight. They're the ones trying to fight Assad and establish democracy, and they're not getting any support from the United States. These people are going to get tired of it and not being able to feed their families, and ISIS is now in control of 2 oil fields. They're going around taking the most ancient artifacts on Earth and auctioning them off on the black market.
They've got the money to feed their people because of the oil revenue.
Exactly. And we told them to take the first oil field they controlled when we were training them with the Al-Nusra Front in Syria to topple Assad. We were the ones that gave the order.
See, this is what I disagree with on our tactics over in defeating ISIS. I don't even think the U.S. should get involved in brokering deals between these countries. I think the big thing is these countries that we tend to support to try to pit against each other, to try to create some sort of workable system out there, these dictators are just flush with cash. These party members are just very wealthy. They're very rich. These are powerful men playing games with common people. And when you actually look at a lot of the common people, you see a lot of people who are just tired of getting wrapped up in the Zionist, anti-Zionist conflict. There's Palestinians and Israelis who are just They're trying to get along so that maybe Gaza and Israel can stop bombing the hell out of each other. Jon Stewart was actually accused of being anti-Israel because of criticizing the fighting between Gaza and Israel. I think the big thing is the people in the area need to learn that this is not how the world should be, and that they should throw off the yoke of these tyrants and just take freedom for themselves. And at that point, they will probably learn how to live with each other.
I mean, in Syria, for example, the UN dubbed it the greatest humanitarian crisis in a long time. 190,000 dead over the last couple of years, 3 million displaced out of a country of what was 18 million in 2012, although it is no longer.
I would support an evacuation effort of displaced people, so long as it was not a military.
But even why
operation.
is that our responsibility?
Yeah, that's
really
true. But
I mean, it's Jordan has undergone. Jordan has kept its borders. It's kept its.
Starting to go.
It's starting to slip because of Iraq, Syria, Palestine. Everybody's flooding into Jordan because of its location.
I just feel
destabilizing. But
I just feel if we absolutely have to do something there, it should be protecting innocent people who have nothing to do with this conflict.
Sure, I mean,
and limited to only that.
Part of the insanity of all this is nationalism, is trying to hold on to the ideas of these borders. When there's so much commonality. I mean, that's sort of, as you look into this, you just go, listen, there's just so much that people have in common, much more than divides them. Why... I know this sounds like super hippie-ish. Gina was supposed to be here, so I'll speak for her. Like, why do you got to kill each other?
Shirt.
Why do you got to kill each other, man? Why is there got to be so much violence, Greg?
Tribalism.
You're our violence expert.
It's tribalism.
Well, they are just living in the desert.
That's a little racist, sir.
No,
it's really hot.
Localist. It's all sand, and
Yeah.
I'd be pissed off.
That
too.
is not true. It's not all sand. It's sandy.
There's
And it's
sand
hot all the
everywhere.
time.
I mean, there's
and-
places in Iran that look like the Alps. It looks
Oh,
like...
the Caucasus
that's not where
Mountains.
everyone's
Tehran's
living.
surrounded by mountains.
Right, yeah. There's skiing there.
Yeah.
Now, because they're not fighting in every conflict. Iran, for what it's worth, they
No, we're
haven't
talking
gotten
geography, not wealth. I mean,
Yeah.
it is... See, this is part of the American problem, okay?
We're
here's-
not accusing Iran of just getting into a lot of
well,
fights, though.
right. I'm not saying this, although they do. They get into every single one.
At a distance.
I'm not saying this about you two, okay? I'm saying this about our politics. This is the arrogance of the American empire. We don't even understand our own nation. The 330 million people that live here, we don't know shit about them. We don't know how this country really works. Even in Indianapolis, where we live, a city of 1 million people see the same event and have two different versions of the political happenings. There's 5 different versions for one thing that happens. So here in America, in Indianapolis, where 4 white kids sit and talk about politics, when
Your hair's looking a little blue.
we don't know anything about their culture, their geography, their life, their daily activities, the struggles that they've gone through, their culture, their religion. We know nothing about them. I barely know anything about the brothers Peffers. I know they have a beard between the two of them.
We've got a lot of things going for us.
There's vaping. One has a FedEx shirt, and they like weed. That's about it. Allegedly. Other than that, I really don't know much about you. So why am I making decisions for the two of you, let alone for some people way over across the sea or the ocean? It's just the folly of us trying to get involved, because say what you will, John Kerry is no less more informed and educated about what to do in Israel and Palestine and Iran and Saudi Arabia than he's less informed than anybody in the region. That's for sure.
Well, in the sciences, this is actually known as the observer effect. If you are the observer, you assume that you have a greater impact on your environment than you actually do.
Right.
It's a very big effect mostly in psychology, but a lot of times you see it in astrophysics or quantum physics. You see it in a lot of, or in biology. You'll see a lot of it in sociology, economics even. And a lot of people feel they have a larger economic impact on the world around them than they actually do, and it's something that you have to bear in mind.
Yeah, so really, in my mind, it's up to the leaders of the region who are directly affected by this group. It's for them to deal with. There's plenty of money in the Middle East for them to deal with this group.
It seems like they've kind of expanded as far as they can go for a little while. Anyway,
Right. They've kind of
Right.
hit the
they
expansion
caught
of the
fire
borders.
real quick.
Right.
Got a lot of.
Now, the danger is what Greg is saying is the mergers and acquisitions mentality spreads to other places, and it develops into an Al-Qaeda, a global network of terrorism.
Well, if it's
and then it
mergers and
becomes-
acquisitions, at least there are diplomatic solutions to those as opposed to
Well,
military.
No,
Not
when
with-
you're talking about warlords in Somalia connecting with warlords in Yemen,
Somalia is not that coordinated.
That's what we're saying. I don't
I
think we're
don't-
talking
Well,
the
you're
same language.
assuming these people are all going to get along.
The problem
wanna
with
do stuff for each other.
the problem with Somalia is they had a catastrophic collapse in infrastructure, one they will not recover very quickly from.
All right, so
And
Greg
when you
has
don't
been.
have infrastructure, it's hard to take.
We all
control.
know Greg has been sitting back quietly, patiently. So who are you going to bomb, Greg?
Me?
Yeah, you dirty neocon,
You
you.
got the big globe in front of you.
Yeah, who's
You
the
look like
first-
you're
Spinning
gonna-
it around.
who's the
You
first-
look like you're going to slam a big red button down with your fist while you got a huge stogie sticking out
who's
of your
the
mouth.
first to be annihilated off the face of the planet?
You know, I don't think that's a solution at all. I'm trying to remember who said it, but there was a former foreign policy expert that once said that the Arab people are either at your throat or at your feet. And I don't believe, and this was back in the 60s.
It sounds like a manipulative person said that.
I don't know, because if you look at the history, it's a series of waves. There is Islamic dominance, and there is outside influence dominance. United States, Roman Empire, blah blah blah. You know, whatever
Well,
the
there's
world
several,
superpower is.
There's several examples of empires where they became a leader in culture and science. I forget what the name of the empire that held the area that's now Afghanistan, but when it was controlled, or when it was conquered by the Mongols, it actually basically fell back into control by its own people because the Mongol leader got so swept up in their culture, he became one of them. But they were very sophisticated artistically. They were very sophisticated scientifically, and you see this in Morocco. And Islamic medicine was very well respected during the Middle Ages because
I'm not disputing that.
Yeah.
But Islam has, and on purpose, since the 60s, since the rise of the Muslim Brotherhood and Sayyid Qutb, it has hardened on purpose because they considered the great moderation to be falling out of will with Allah, and that was the entire rise of this hardcore fundamentalism in the Middle East, is that they blamed it on westernization, which arguably it was. And the royal house of Saud in Saudi Arabia is no more divine right of kings than the United States going in and saying, you guys like us, you want to be rich.
Right.
I mean, and so they've hardened against us. Those countries aren't going to do anything because it's going to cause unrest in their countries. Why doesn't Saudi Arabia do something? Why doesn't Egypt do something? Why doesn't Lebanon do something? Why doesn't Libya, any of those countries do anything? Because if they crack down on Sunnis, it's going to create a backlash, and then ISIS will just assume through democratically elected, and then you have Syria all over and Egypt all over, where we prop up a technocratic leader over a democratically elected leader.
Well, I mean, there's probably another reason why these countries aren't getting involved, and it's that the U.S. has the most expansive military, and militaries are expensive. And why pump money into your own military when you know the U.S. is going to get involved and spend all
But they
their
aren't
money?
all our allies.
Canada.
Yeah.
Like, look at Syria. So
Canada might not need to reestablish their navy coming up with this Putin thing.
So I think, like,
You know, I read the other day that Disney has like the 5th largest navy in the world.
What?
Just thought I'd throw that out there with their fleet of ships.
That mouse is up to some shit,
Yeah.
isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, what's your solution? Who are you going to bomb?
I don't know if you can bomb anyone. I mean, what can
Damn
you
it.
really do? That's what I don't understand.
This is
And
a sad day for America.
No, I don't see.
There's no one left to free.
We can't. Yeah. There's nobody we can free with bombs anymore.
Right.
It's so foundational and so to the very core of what the largest religion on earth believes. And now, granted, you need the vast majority of moderate Muslims to stand up and say this is not Islam. That's what wins. Anything short of that, Assad is freaking out right now. If Vladimir Putin wasn't propping up Assad, ISIS would control Syria
That's
right
because
now.
Assad didn't know what they were doing.
What do you
What?
mean?
You can't throw your. He's going waving his hand like he's throwing a
phooey.
baseball. Phooey. They can't see that on the radio here.
But I mean, this was a guy that no less than a year ago, Barack Obama was comparing to Adolf Hitler. All of a sudden now we're sharing intelligence and offering supplies with Vladimir Putin and Iran in order to beat back ISIS.
I mean, Iran and the United States are sharing intelligence with the Kurds in the north of Iraq. I mean, it's amazing the strange bedfellows that
Israel, Iran, Egypt, and the United States, England, and Assad are all sharing intelligence right now.
right,
That's
yeah.
arguably the greatest coalition in the history
Kim
of mankind.
Jong-un is so pissed off he
Yeah.
wants in.
Well, my favorite part about the internet these days is the fact that we've got such a back catalog of what politicians have been saying available to every person. I mean, I'm not sure if you guys have seen these McCain versus McCain videos from back in the day, but I mean, it's never been easier to find conflicting
Sure.
conflicting sound bites from politicians, and the American people are keeping better track of who our enemies are supposed to be and who they're turning into all the time.
Someone compared what's happening right now with the French Revolution, and I thought that was an interesting comparison. And they said, it's going to get bloody. It is bloody. It's going to get worse, and then it will get better. And then they talked about the shared commonality of the Middle East, where they share more than the French and the people who made up the French Germanic nation states during the French Revolution. They share that common language. They share common values. They share a common religion. They share a common wealth. And unfortunately, it's going to be nasty for many years to come, maybe in our lifetime, but eventually they'll get it together. And if you really just study and look at history from a broad perspective, what's happening now is a not necessarily a global crisis. It's what's gone on since the time of man began, and there's nothing that the United States is going to be able to do to stop it. We're only going to make it worse. And it just is sad that is the truth, and it makes it tougher and more difficult than ever before because we see it on TV and social media. We see the downside and the goriness of this kind of atrocities, and we want to help because we at our core, human beings want to help other human beings, and we just can't. You just can't. You'll just make it worse.
Because if you defeat ISIS, then what?
Right.
Well,
The Kurds are never going to lead that region. That government's in shambles. It's going to be it'll be the next strongest roving band of individuals.
Some can argue we purposely destabilized Iraq by taking out Saddam Hussein. And
We, without a doubt, did.
Because we want the turmoil, because then it's easier to cut deals and it's less of a stranglehold over the resources.
Well, the thing is, I don't think that this is such an inevitable part of human nature, as you guys seem to be saying. Correct me if I'm wrong. The thing is, it's just, I mean, there are a lot of people who just have no interest in this war whatsoever. I guarantee you that. And if if the Middle East ever manages to stabilize, I bet you dollars to donuts that it was because a few people were destabilizing the region for personal gain. I guarantee it. I feel like the warlords are trying to do it to keep enough resources around to
of course, because
fuel their solid gold jet skis and whatnot.
With solid gold jet skis.
I bet some of them can afford it.
Yeah, because when
That's what a
Gaddafi
sand jet ski looks like.
and Saddam are in power, they're in prison or they're nobody, and when it's a destabilized environment, it's like a free market, man. Anybody can make it if you're just brutal enough or charismatic enough or have more resources than the other guy.
And you'll never be able to tamp down individuals that are hungry for power because those who aren't interested, don't care, don't just want to be left alone are always going to be
But I
subject to
feel
those
And that is
with
why
power.
none of you bastards will ever take over We Are Libertarians.
feel like
I will rule
there
with an
are
iron
fewer
fist.
of those every
Well, I feel like that
amount of time.
I feel like that touches on the anarchist argument. The thing is, the only way to prevent these psychopaths, and that I mean that in the medical sense, nothing will stop these psychopaths from going after these powerhouses we know as governments, unless if we manage to decentralize the authority, kill the monopoly of force, so that there is no central place where where psychopaths can just be granted large amounts of authority over innocent people.
I mean, I guess bottom line, to wrap up on this before we talk about the politics here at home over it wouldn't have made sense for China to intervene in the French Revolution. They couldn't have helped. They could have only made it worse. The French Revolution happened. It led to World War I. It led to World War II. And then over the last 70, 80 years, we've had peace amongst the Western worlds.
One thing about the French is they know how to throw a fucking revolution, am I right?
Yeah, and
They invented the guillotine because of one of those, because they were just out of ideas and wanted to try something new.
the Americans had their revolution. The British had their revolution. The British had people like Edmund Burke. They had thought leaders who kept it from becoming bloody. The United States had their revolution. Other than the Whiskey Rebellion and a few small rebellions, the United States transitioned from Britain to internally. Up until that whole Civil War thing was fairly
That old
peaceful.
thing?
That
Yeah.
old thing where like a fifth of the country died.
The greatest loss of American life.
Where we did consider human beings 3/5 of a person. Other than that,
Other
it
than
politically
such
was
atrocities.
But that's my point. Every culture, it's not even about a nation state. It's not about the United States. It's not about France. It's about the people who share that common culture, those common values. That's what America is. We've had these wounds and they've healed over time. This is not something that the United States can solve for the Middle East. This is something that the Middle East is just going to have to figure out for itself.
But damned if we aren't going to try.
Yep, we're going to free the shit out of some people.
Yeah.
So politically,
But we have strategic interest there.
sure. I mean,
Especially one
world
big
does.
one that was the byproduct of the French Revolution, which led to World War II because of the Treaty of Versailles, which led to the Jewish state being put right in the middle around a bunch of people that hate them.
The steam engine?
Yeah, no oil.
So I mean, it's like
We're going to take our big straw and put it right in their milkshake and go.
And it's going to
That
be
sounds filthy.
Mr. Burns's leaning oil rig.
Haven't you seen There Will Be Blood?
I've seen that scene.
I taking your milkshake.
It just sounds filthy when you say it.
I know.
It does sound filthy.
Ladies.
Reach our straw into their milk.
We are libertarians
We've
after
been doing
dark.
that for decades.
So, politically here at home, I got to say, Rand Paul might be a genius.
mm-hmm.
So Rand Paul goes on Meet the Press, and he calls Hillary Clinton a war hawk. Now, previously, Hillary Clinton, one of her problems in 2008 was that she was seen as wishy-washy on foreign affairs, and that she was not as hawkish. The American people wanted somebody who was a strong leader. As much as we didn't like Bush, we liked his swagger, and that he was going to free the shit out of some
People like
terrorists.
strength. They're drawn to strength.
Right. He had that strength. And did Hillary have the stomach for war? Also, read a little misogyny into that. But
Yeah, there probably was some misogyny.
so there was an attempt, and one of the reasons that she wanted to become Secretary of State is because they wanted to show her her strength in global affairs. Lo and behold, in 2014, Rand Paul's sitting on Meet the Press, a Republican, and says that he's afraid that that if the Democrats, it's going to be a transitional election if the Democrats elect a war hawk like Hillary Clinton, because Americans are tired of war. Holy crap!
Oh yeah.
He had moved.
That's
He
quite
just,
a move.
He just moved to the left of Hillary Clinton, positioned the Republicans as anti-war, and made the entire discussion Hillary Clinton, the war hawk, versus the dove, Rand Paul, the Republican.
Yeah.
It's very rare that a Republican has the moral authority to call a Democrat a war hawk.
And can legitimately say it.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that, but he does. Like, he's in the perfect position to just do that.
'Cause if-
it's like he's been planning it. This
Right,
whole
if John
time.
McCain walks out there and says, the war hawk Hillary Clinton, everybody busts into laughter
Yeah.
and then shows the picture of him with ISIS a year ago.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
And also, I'm sure you're going to get into this, the moral Teflon that Rand Paul has at the
Sure.
moment.
Greg?
I know you thought you probably think I drink the Kool-Aid and have the Rand boner and blah 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 blah, but he is the
Rand.
smartest politician I've ever. Like, he's a tightrope walker. The guy's unbelievable.
I didn't think Creighton got here.
He is. I'm not saying like I believe in him, like, he's my Barack Obama. I'm just saying that he when it's an issue that he can win on, he picks the perfect position. When it's an issue that he doesn't want to get bogged down in, he's in Guatemala saving blind kids. Like, the guy is the greatest political player
Literally.
I've ever seen.
Tom Woods was talking recently on his excellent podcast. Everyone should, after you're done listening to every episode of We're Libertarians, should listen to the Tom Woods Show. I think it was Norm Singleton that he was talking to recently.
Especially episode 4 when they appropriated our logo.
That's right. When Tom
Hey,
Woods.
where'd that pile of cash come from?
So we credit many of our listeners to Tom Woods putting us in his podcast feed. We all had wet pants that day. So
I was the one who stumbled on that, Jim, too.
I know. What do you want, a cookie? You want
I do want a cookie.
Want a wall badge?
We have
I
cookies
do
at
want a
home,
wall
dude.
badge.
Here's your gold star.
I
So-
would like a gold star, too.
Are you acknowledging his authority over you because he can give you an award?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Kneel before me.
I'm on his podcast.
was gonna
I will
say,
not
you
kneel,
can get
though.
your
I
own
kneel to
gold
no
star.
man.
Kneel before me.
They sell gold
I
stars
kneel
out
to
there.
no man. and,
Do they?
and I call no man,
There
sir.
are people selling gold stars, I'm sure.
Stop it.
Something you could call it that.
Yeah, that's one problem I have with the. I don't like that kids get trophies. You can just buy trophies; they're worthless. Nobody just goes out and buys one.
Just
that
because my
economically
mom bought me
values.
trophies, it doesn't mean I'm not bad at things.
I mean, it's
So-
just like if the kid wants a trophy, give him a trophy. It's
All right,
cheap.
let me get to my point eventually.
All right.
So, Tom Woods was talking to a Ron Paulian. I think it was Norm Singleton, his a guy who worked for Ron Paul for many years. I forget what his title was. And he said one of the problems that I have with Rand Paul that I think a lot of libertarians have is that Ron Paul, the thing that attracted us to Ron Paul was that he was, damn the torpedoes. I'm principled. If you don't like it, tough, because this is the position. I don't care about all the political language and all the jockeying. This is what's right, and if it costs me, it costs me. Whereas Rand Paul may or may not believe that. You can't really pin him down. He's a little more slippery as a politician. He's trying to play the game, and there's oftentimes a lot of, what you hear from people like Creighton, people who have
But I
the Rand
asked
boners.
Ron that at
Sure.
DePaul, straight on.
Right. And, you got to play the game. It's how you present the information, and it's how you play politics. And you know what? If you're there's merits to both. There wouldn't be a Rand without a Ron. And, Rand can't lose what made Ron special, although for a lot of libertarians he has. But Rand,
Spiteful people.
Rand seems to be the perfect combination, again, walking that tightrope of holding on to libertarian principles, flashing signals to the base, saying, I'm with you, I believe what you believe, stay with me, watch what we're doing here, watch what we're doing, while also convincing the mainstream media, the political machinery, that he is a viable candidate, that he can manage a multi-billion-dollar campaign for president, that he won't be a Barry Goldwater who will get like 2%. He really is.
He won't be a Bush who takes a working vacation in the first year.
He's just a fascinating politician to watch.
He has a very natural talent for it because, the thing to remember is he's a first-term elected senator.
Right.
The guy was an ophthalmologist up until, 2010?
Right.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And yet he does politics better
And he
than
still
anybody
is
in the United States Senate or
He's
Congress.
still an ophthalmologist because
Yeah.
he's treating patients.
Yeah.
Because they don't work over there.
Compare him
Not
to
the ophthalmologists and the government.
But-
They're only there a few days of the year.
I thought you meant the Guatemalans.
No.
I was like,
no.
Like, Joe's gonna
man,
be pissed.
where
is
was
not-
your head,
Greg has this look when somebody says something racist. Greg has this look on his face that you immediately go, "Should I erase that from the tape?" Which has happened several times.
Yeah,
But
It's a priceless look too.
yeah, people
I
forget
meant
because
the
it's
Senate.
I know.
It seems like Rand has been around forever, whereas Ted Cruz shows his freshmanness a lot.
All the time.
Mike
Yeah.
Lee
Yes.
shows his freshmanness a lot.
But he's got that Mormon awkwardness too.
Yeah.
The big thing about Ted Cruz is he likes to take what Rand does that gets a lot of attention and then figure out some way to copy it.
and put the Christian conservative spin on
And
it.
people are wise to that.
Yeah.
And he doesn't do it as well.
No, that's
if he did it as
slippery.
well, he'd be all right.
He doesn't have a
Slippery is
natural
the perfect
likability
word
either.
for him.
Yeah.
That's the
For
biggest
Rand
thing.
Paul.
Yeah, Ted Cruz has there's even when he's trying to be sincere and
He's kind of a
empathetic.
Nixon.
Well, it's because he's always just trying to be sincere and empathetic.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a try-hard.
Like
Yeah.
you know he can't wait to shoot you, but right now he's very empathetic.
Yeah,
Right.
he's very much a Nixon, you know. He starts to sweat. And
Yeah.
he-
You know what?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. But whereas Rand Paul, he's a little bit of awkward, like his dad.
Right.
But it's endearing.
But he also has
It's
he has
Dr. Awkward.
he has a speaking ability that Ron doesn't have. Ron has a very awkward
Yes.
way of speaking, but Rand doesn't. But at the same time, Rand doesn't give you goosebumps. As much as I am with Rand, even George Bush, even Barack Obama twice as president. George Bush, because of after 9/11, everybody was all in. But he was. He gave you those goosebumps. You felt leadership, whatever that quality
Did
is.
Bill Clinton really give goosebumps like that, though?
Oh yeah, Bill
He did.
Clinton.
Maybe if you were a
But-
chubby girl, but
He just never had
I was a chubby girl
crisis.
once.
He never had a crisis to lead in.
Right.
Like people always said that about Clinton. Like no great travesty ever happened for Clinton to demonstrate his leadership.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas with Bush, 9/11 happens, and he by no means of his team preparing him for it. There's someone screaming at him like, "We can hear you,"
Right.
or "We can't hear you," and he goes, "Well, I can hear you,"
And soon they'll hear all of us.
yeah, and then all of a sudden he's at a 90% approval rating, and this is a guy that lost the popular vote.
Right.
He had that a little bit of charisma that Al Gore never had.
He had unbelievable speechwriters who, after 9/11, wrote some speeches that are just instant classic presidential speeches too. I mean, and he was able to rise to the occasion to speak in a very effective manner. Now, his policies were crap. He's everything that was wrong with the presidency. I'm just saying, Rand does Rand have those qualities? Does he have as a libertarian, I agree with what he says, but does he inspire me in any kind of way?
I don't think
I don't
you
think
need
so.
that to win the next election, though. I think people are sick of those kind of politicians.
That
honestly.
and you
Is-
got to
but that's something that we like to say, but nobody ever votes that way.
You got to
right?
give him time. I mean, Ron Paul had 22 years to hone his craft when it came to public speaking.
And it still isn't honed.
and it's still not
Yeah,
there.
it's still
He's got
not
the
there,
most frail
but-
voice I've ever heard.
But he managed to figure out a way to get goosebumps out of people in that time, and that might take a few more years than being a
I
freshman.
think a lot of it's
senator.
Rand Paul's like watching The Price is Right with Drew Carey. He's not Bob Barker, but if you give him a chance, I think you'll like him.
Because that's why Barack Obama beat Hillary Clinton. I mean, Hillary Clinton would get shrill, and it was like your mom yelling at you when she would
Yeah.
try to get loud and inspiring. Barack Obama never inspired me on the campaign trail or as watching him as president. But somebody else is responding to him.
But I think people
You know.
being disappointed in Barack Obama has made them wary of people who, flaunt that as their only trait.
But doesn't
Starry-eyed
it hurt
candidates.
Rand that Rand is that?
He's kind of the
slippery politician.
anti-Obama. No, because Obama was just like this smiling nice guy the whole time. Rand, he's slippery, but you can see his slipperiness, right?
I guess
It's a little more honest. Like you can tell.
He's got a natural
It's
authenticity.
like Jack
I think.
Sparrow.
Yeah.
It's only the honest people you got to look out for.
You know what? Who I would compare him to a little bit. He's got a humor, a dry sense of humor as well. He's funny. He reminds me a little bit of Mitch Daniels here in Indiana.
Oh yeah.
He does. He's
I think
better
he-
than
I think
Mitch
he's Harry
Daniels.
Truman.
Mitch
he is kind of a Mitch Daniels.
Mitch
I have to
Daniels.
agree.
Mitch Daniels is very dry, very funny, very personable. The guy walked into the radio station that I worked at the time. 2 years after I left that show. I had met him once when I was on the show, and he remembered my first name. There's no reason that Mitch Daniels should ever have known what my first name was, but
Other
he
than
remembered
being
that.
president of all libertarians.
Yeah, but I mean, it just was. He just.
Every one of them.
Yeah, he was an amazing speechifier.
Well, he was a good administrator. Say what you will about some of his policies, but overall, he was a decent administrator.
But sort of
the
that,
state.
Mitch captured that folksy Hoosierness in an authentic, genuine way that Mike Pence desperately tries to, but he can't.
Same with
see
Evan
that.
Bayh. Evan Bayh tried
Yeah.
to capture that. But
Evan
he didn't.
Bayh became absolutely amazing, in my opinion, as soon as he decided he was going to quit.
Mm-hmm.
He started showing up on all these shows, and I was like, where the hell has this been for 30 years?
Yeah,
He's
I-
part of the No
I didn't
Labels
re-
movement. Yeah.
Oh.
I didn't really know what he looked like until towards the end of his.
He
No
quit,
labels
announces he's going to quit, and starts going on shows talking about how the president's an idiot, and then John McCain and that Sarah Palin wing are idiots, and I'm like, where has this been?
All right, well, we're getting a little too Indiana-centric, but I wanted to give props to Rand because I thought that Meet the Press interview, if you haven't watched it, go back and watch it.
It's a bold move. That's
It
good. I like
really,
it.
it was a great interview. It was very good, and
And he's done it. He's done it on
Walks-
drugs, on minimum sentences.
walked the line on the Ferguson police brutality, over-militarization of the police, gave the libertarian line in a way that I think Mr. and Mrs. America can really digest that pill in a way that, like, Maya didn't on our last show, Where libertarians, we listen to that and we, and even on our Facebook, I think we try to be as fair as possible and give both sides and just try to give the facts, and we got unfollowed a lot because we were too anti-police. It's like, well, if that's we weren't trying that.
Nobody
that's not our
kills
goal.
more Americans than police.
Right. So, just because
They're
it's
the largest gang.
right,
They
just
don't
because it's
even
a taboo.
die that often. It's not the most dangerous job in the country.
It's not even all that
Well, that's
hard.
Yeah, it's not even. All right, let's stop before we all get speeding tickets.
Yeah.
for sitting-
We were going to get
sitting
them
here.
anyway
Fun
if
fact:
we were going to
most
get
policemen die in car accidents. Not so fun, I guess, but
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
It's not fun, probably for the cop.
Let's go ahead and
No.
redact the word "fun." Let's say
We're
tragic
putting the
and
fun.
sad.
Free
We're putting the fun
podcast.
back
Yeah.
in funeral.
Let's-
We're going to
say
censor one word in the whole show, and that word's fun.
fun. That's because this is a libertarian podcast, and we will not have fun here.
We will only have arguments and pissing each other off.
We will condescendingly tell you why we were right 30 years ago, and you should have listened to us, and this is what you get, and I told you so. All right, so let's. Any other ramifications of politics at home, Syria, any of that we missed that you guys want to cover?
I think we explored it pretty thoroughly. I got everything I wanted to discuss.
The Christians. One thing that's kind of astounded me is how quiet the Christian conservatives have been on this.
Yeah.
Christians are being brutally attacked, and the Catholic Church has made a few, alluded to it a few times. But
oh yeah, there hasn't been a big Pope.
have you heard
statement yet,
anyone
really.
heard say? Have you heard
What?
Sarah Palin? Have you heard Mike Huckabee?
I
Have
think-
you heard?
I've seen a lot. I mean, on Christian websites, which I will occasionally
I
go
hear
to.
random people on the internet.
Christian friends.
Yeah, not no names, but
Well, but
Kinda.
Christian friends have changed their profile picture to like this like black background with a gold, like, I don't know, like it looks like an Arabic writing.
they can't see
symbol
what
or
you're
something.
doing.
Yeah,
with
I'm
your
doing
hand.
this thing. I'm like doing like a horseshoe thing. Like I've seen friends change it to that in support of the Christians being killed there. But no, you're right. I mean, nothing in any kind of
Eerily
This seems
silent.
like
Yeah.
this seems like something Sarah Palin would be all.
Oh, this
over.
is Rick Santorum 101. Right?
Yeah, like there's a bunch of people who really want attention, and they could get.
I
it from
just
this.
think that the Zionist movement is losing a lot of steam right now because
They-
because people are finally confronting how much violence that sending a lot of aid to Israel and its enemies is causing.
Explain that. What does Zionism mean?
Zionism is the idea that the state of Israel belongs to the Hebrew people, and and a long time ago they didn't. They were stateless. They were roaming around Europe and all other parts of the world. Then we had a little thing called the Holocaust. So post World War II, people got together and decided Israel needed a homeland, and there were several sites considered. One of which being someplace in central Canada.
Boca.
I'm not exactly sure
Stop
where.
it.
but-
Sorry, Boca Raton.
Oh,
Stop
Boca
it.
Raton.
I'm
Oh,
watching too much Seinfeld.
Oh, no.
Manhattan.
Yeah, no, I'm kidding.
yeah. All right, yeah. But anyway, so, yeah, the one of the sites happened to be middle of Canada, which would have, I mean, the Canadians aren't anti-Semites in general, so there would have been very little violence in the area had that gone through. But these people decided to give the Hebrews their ancestral homeland back. Problem was, it had already been colonized by Palestinians, very well established with olive fields where they were growing olives. And when the state of Israel was established, a lot of these olive trees were slashed and burned. They take 40 years to cultivate into something economically productive. Pissed a lot of people off. And now there's been fighting ever since because you've got a bunch of Palestinians who were displaced from their home to give the Israelis a home so that they would not have to suffer genocide, but now they are surrounded by enemies.
Yep.
All right.
And
I think when people hear the word Zionism, they think anti-Semitism. So I think it's important to kind of define terms so people
Zion's
know
where they live.
I am
and
scrolling.
Zionists support the Zionist state, but I mean, ultimately, what happened, and if they're just going to have to figure out how to live next to each other because they are currently living next to each other, and neither of them are going anywhere.
Harry Truman. There's a story where Harry Truman was reading through the Bible one day and felt like it was part of his Christian duty to create Israel. And that it was a mandate from God. So look up that story. But,
sounds like something Truman would do.
So I'm scrolling through Facebook while Dan's talking. No correlation.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
And
I know that trick.
CBN News, the Christian Broadcasting Network, warning: video contains graphic images, and it's a TV piece. CBN News expert team discusses the contrast between the UK's response to the ISIS threat and that of the United States. Reid, UK, and David Cameron are very strong and actively pursuing a military solution, whereas Obama is meandering and wearing tan suits. Which there's a whole hubbub because Barack Obama wore a light-colored suit, and it's some sort of horrible offense. And our friend Doug Mataconis, who writes outside of the Beltway, libertarian-leaning, I'd say libertarian writer, posted a picture of Ronald Reagan wearing a tan suit while walking with the Pope.
I just didn't know that there was a dress code for the president.
So, if you go to places like CBN and some of the Christian websites, you do sort of see that building undercurrent towards military action for whatever reason. Because to me, as a Christian, there couldn't be anything more antithetical towards my belief system than that of trying to supporting unjust wars.
Well, one thing I've learned is
which this would qualify.
If you attack Obama on anything other than policy, then you simply lose credibility. The birther movement made sure of that.
Yeah, any politician. It's not just Obama. It's just he's the...
I don't know. A lot of politicians, you can really rally people against them if you do a bunch of personal attacks.
Well, Sarah Palin, the whole point is that you can't attack her on policy because she's so personally dumb. I mean, what political substance does Sarah Palin have? So you have to...
she can see Russia from her house.
Right. I mean,
which could come in handy.
Yeah. Sure.
Well, yeah.
Well, that's
might give her a few minutes notice.
Quite frankly, the Ukraine could have used someone watching Russia from their back porch for some time now.
Dan, the person who throws us off course more than anybody else, just accidentally segued us right into Putin and Ukraine.
Totally
I believe I go where I am needed.
Okay, so let's get to the Ukraine and Russia. Greg, would you like to fill us in on some of the details?
Yeah, so there was a Russian envoy of aid vehicles that were basically soldiers going in to offer food in order to buy the support of various little... It's funny, actually, Putin is following the exact same strategy as ISIS. Mm-hmm. He's going into Russian-speaking areas that are already sympathetic towards Russians, and he goes in with aid, and he tries to buy their loyalty, and then they break off.
Ironically, this is the same strategy that I have been proposing libertarians for decades. Go into areas, feed the people, get to know your neighbors, and they'll become your supporters. It's the craziest thing.
So he's basically buying small chunks of Ukraine one at a time.
He is, and they're already Russian-speaking, and he is adamant about going down as one of Russia's greatest leaders.
It's at the risk of losing the argument by evoking the H name. It's similar to what Hitler did in Czechoslovakia with the Sudetenland, except for and Austria. But the thing is, Hitler went in with tanks, and there was no resistance.
Sure.
But it sounds like what you're saying is Putin's sending people in advance to find the people who are in support of him, and then taking those cities.
Well, it's a soft war tactic. I mean, it's a very common tactic throughout history. You soften the ground by endearing yourself to the people before you bring in military. It's sort of like boiling the frog before you get there.
Oh, I hate the boiling the frog.
That's why the people of Brazil speak Portuguese more than they speak Spanish. The Spanish go in and try to hellfire and brimstone take over, and the Portuguese go in with gifts.
So essentially, there's at some accounts 1,000 soldiers, maybe more, probably more, actively invading. There's no other word for it. Yeah. Invading the Ukraine. And 2 days ago, Putin had a photo op with the Ukrainian prime minister where they're starting to have talks and they're trying to put everything to bed. And then, 2 days after that, Putin has ordered tanks into the Ukraine.
And 100,000 troops at the border.
Right. It's the guy, he just doesn't, it's like, does he think, or does he think that people aren't going to figure him out? Like, he spends all this money to make Sochi a success and put them on the world stage and build goodwill with the international community, and then 2 weeks later he invades the Ukraine.
I'm not sure how much goodwill Sochi.
Oh, he was the toast of the international community.
Yeah, I feel like everyone
he came out of there smelling like a rose.
Right. I feel like everybody was focusing on the pictures that were coming out of Sochi and the fact that they were running out of snow.
There was some of that
roaming the street,
but there was some of that. But there was also
him specifically
some of what happened with Hitler in '36 and Mussolini before him, where the intellectual left, especially in the United States, Putin's on the rise. He's doing great things in Russia, detailing the successes of Russia. Of course, there's problems where the journalists are being murdered and poisoned to death. But
do you really like journalists anyway?
Right. I mean,
journalists.
Right. So there was a lot of that for about 2 weeks, and then the guy invades the Ukraine, and then now he's trying to strike deals and start peace talks with the Ukraine, and to figure this out. I mean, so he just gave a speech where he referenced New Russia, and I didn't really get a chance to go over the article on what that exactly means, but essentially, when he gave a little signal to what his plans are. And this little signal is basically reuniting the USSR.
It's not quite the USSR.
Right.
It's actually the lands that Russia took from the fall of the Ottoman Empire and was able to take over. So, under the USSR, Ukraine was still the independent Ukrainian Socialist Republic.
Man, the Ottomans seem to be at the hand of a lot of things.
The Ottomans...
The sick man of Europe 100 years ago, as they failed and fell as an empire, they ran out of gas right as World War I began.
Yeah.
And the crumbling of the Ottoman Empire was really a key component to the world,
the Arab world.
Right. And so the crumbling of that empire really set the stage, and it's why everything was carved up after World War I. Everything was reconfigured again after World War II. And again, it's the British, the Americans, the French, the Italians dictating to the rest of the world how everything will go.
It was the death of the old world and then the emergence of the modern world.
Well, are there any countries that call themselves an empire anymore? In their name? That was the last one, wasn't it?
The Ottoman Empire.
Ethiopia. You had Emperor Haile Selassie.
Oh, there's emperors, no doubt. There's the Sultan of Brunei. There's titles or titles.
Well, I mean,
there's not a British empire. There's not a a Roman empire. There's not any of.
We don't call what we have
the American empire.
Yeah. I guess the last one was the last ones were the Ottoman Empire and the Holy Roman Empire.
No, I mean, people 150 years ago were very proud of imperialism, but then, after all those people got killed and murdered, all of a sudden it became out of vogue.
It was selected out of the gene pool, is what you're saying.
Right. It goes by a different name now.
But Nouveau Russia is the reemergence of Russia and a Eurasian economy. So right now, the biggest reason Ukraine was so important is that if Ukraine joins NATO and joins the Euro, like the Euro League, Westernization sweeps. That isn't how people think in Russia. People don't look at it in Western democratic terms. People are very nationalistic. People are very they're very much less principled from a standpoint of human rights, of democracy, of the minorities need to be protected. It's more about a nation's strength and pride. It's a lot of influenced by Nietzsche, like that they're great men. And it doesn't really matter what they do, but that great men move society, regardless of what they actually do. That and so even Putin's PhD was about the establishing these super titans of the economy, oil, manufacturing, restoring Russia to its pride. The people will support him, and he can build Nouveau Russia.
See, I feel I have a weird perception of Putin, honestly. He cracks me up, to be just completely honest. He cracks me up because I've never seen a man who cared so much about his self-image and was so insecure about it.
Kim Jong-il?
Oh.
Kim Jong-un?
Serious leader.
Tom Cruise?
The other aspect of it is that corruption is so deeply embedded into the culture and the economies of all the former USSR blocs because, even before the USSR and communism, it was a very poor. I mean, Russia was always considered the redheaded stepchild of the empires. The Russian Empire was never on the same plane as the French or the British. They always felt that they were second best. The Italians have some of that as well, and the Spaniards too. But Russia especially, Nicholas II, who was killed in the Russian Revolution, was like the cousin of Queen Victoria, and it's like if you see all the princes of all these Russian empires, all the czars and kings. From like there's a family portrait of Victoria with her nieces and nephews. They all look exactly alike. But the Russians were always very poor. It was a big empire, so even though they had all these resources, it was very spread out, very hard to control in the old world. So that contributes a lot to it. So you had a lot of bartering, like you had in the old world, left over even into the modern era. Then the USSR comes in, and you have no currency. So it's bartering what you've got for what you've got as opposed to a currency system. And then that mentality just switched to corruption when it became monetary. Just give you a little bit extra. So that is very difficult when you're trying to implement a European mindset within, people consider Russia part of Europe, but it's not. It really isn't the same as Britain and Russia. It's a different animal.
Most of their landmass is actually in Asia.
Sure.
They're not really either, though.
Yeah.
Russia.
Right. They're their own thing. Why do they got to be part of the Western world or the Eastern world? They're their own thing.
They're kind of a buffer.
Listen, Putin and Russia, you're beautiful. Just accept who you are.
Yeah, you don't have to try to impress everybody. We love you just
They're
the way
very
you
You
are.
do, though, to win re-election. And you do to have the support of everyone, which is the whole point of the Ukraine, is that people forget that before Putin invaded the Ukraine, the Russian economy was not doing well, and his support was at an all-time low. What do?
You invade a country that's sympathetic, that's weak. And because he controls all the media, he has positioned it as Putin and Russia versus the Nazis who have taken over the Ukraine. The reason that he is going and liberating the Ukraine is because Nazis are controlling the entire country, and so he has to liberate our fellow countrymen who are under the control of the Nazis. So he can't lose because then he loses face in his own country, which is still amazing why he'd have a photo op with the head of the Ukraine.
To show how
Right.
rational. I mean, the guy, I look at him, and I think this guy's brilliant because he's completely unpredictable.
Right.
it's crazy to be predictable and rational, because then people are able to manipulate you through offerings.
Right.
With Vladimir Putin, you have no idea what he's going to do next.
Right.
It's absolutely unpredictable.
Yeah, kind of a wild card.
He is feared and beloved, which is the hardest thing to accomplish in the world.
You have a Putin boner.
Oh, I just think I admire people who play their they do their craft well. Like, so Nixon, totally horrible person,
Right.
masterful politician.
Mm-hmm.
You can learn from that and be a good person. You don't have to be Putin and be a terrible person.
The Robert Caro biographies of Lyndon Johnson took a president that I didn't know anything about and turned him into he is one of the worst human beings to ever participate in American politics of all time. But there is a weird respect that I have for him because he was so
He's
brilliant.
Frank Underwood.
Yeah, he really was.
Vladimir Putin is Frank Underwood.
So was LBJ.
LBJ. Hitler. These people are all Frank Underwood. They're the greatest power brokers, and they understand dynamics of, or essentially power dynamics better than anyone that's ever lived, and they're totally amoral.
No,
Yeah.
Greg, I've got one question for you. If we're going to compare Russians to Nazis invading surrounding countries, do you think it's going to stop at the Ukraine, or do you think there are other countries that...
it's Nouveau Russia is what he wants to put back together.
Okay,
so they're going to go...
So what countries do you see falling next if Ukraine gets taken?
Definitely Tajikistan, Kazakhstan.
You think Kazakhstan
But
is...
Kazakhstan's the greatest country in the world.
Well, if Borat's there, they stand a chance.
Yeah.
I
But-
think
Yeah.
They're going to hit the border and see that green thong and turn right around.
There's nothing that scares Russians like a man built like Borat in a neon green thong.
Well, I figured Kazakhstan was more culturally similar to countries like Georgia or Uzbekistan rather than Russia.
Has always had its eyes on Georgia, too, though.
Georgia? Georgia?
They've
Yeah.
made a few goes at Georgia.
Well, I mean, they invaded in 2006. I mean, Bush was like...
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
Why'd they invade
Yeah,
Atlanta?
and if Iran is looking more and more threatening to Georgia, I wouldn't be surprised if Georgia threw their lot in with Russia.
They're after our...
I was informed by a Georgian soldier that I met who said that they're actually in a huge dispute with Iran because Iran holds a lot of territory that Georgia claims as their own. In fact, most of Georgian territory that they claim is actually owned by Iran at the moment.
They're after our Vidalia onions called Saakashvili. So, I don't know. I mean, on
think
one
Romania?
hand, I want to say that Putin wants to put back new Russia together, but on the other hand, he's only sending in 1,000 soldiers. It's like he's creating a little destabilization and unpredictability to kind of test to see where these other countries are at, who might fold in, but he's not really necessarily... I can't imagine that he would be willing to get kicked out of... is Russia in NATO now? They're in NATO,
Yeah,
right?
they've been in NATO for some time.
And so he's very pissed at the notion that the Ukraine would join NATO, which would be kind of ironic if the Ukraine joined NATO, because NATO, the whole point is it's a treaty to protect each other from Russian aggressors.
Yeah.
Russia is added
Soviet
to the treaty.
aggressors.
Soviet aggressors. Now, like, Ukraine joins NATO, and then we're going to kick Russia out. I don't know how that would work.
It would definitely be a treaty violation because
Sure.
NATO is a treaty framework.
They're going to get kicked out of the G8, which they all already kind of were. I don't know how willing he really is to push.
He can't do anything until the Chinese march with him.
Right. How willing is he? How will he push the international community? It almost seems like he's just kind of. This is like he's not ready to take the cake out of the oven. He's just putting the toothpick in the cake to
Well,
see if it's done yet.
I was thinking if anyone's gonna take over the Middle East, it would probably be the Russians, right? Those people are scrappy.
No one would take over the Middle East.
Well,
the biggest problem with the
graveyard of
Middle East
empires.
is
they
that
could weather the great.
is the disruption of oil. So, if the disruption of oil ever were to happen, the Chinese would march in and make Tiananmen Square look like a picnic. Like they would roll over Arabs and turn them into pancakes very quickly.
So do you think that they're out for global domination, or do you think they're just going after low-hanging fruit?
Who? Russia?
Russia, yeah.
Russia. Vladimir Putin right now is trying to reestablish political dominance and political support in his country.
Do you think he'd be satisfied with being the dominant country in the world, the dominant superpower, or do you think he's wanting something larger than just being the most influential superpower.
No, I don't necessarily think he wants to be the largest superpower, because I think he understands that as long as China keeps up their growth the way they are, even though they may or may not catch like the U.S. size of the economy just because they may not let their currency inflate, the global financial system is predominantly U.S. based. We set up the
Not
IMF.
for much longer.
That's what I think all this is that there's been a lot of talk about a Eurasian, essentially IMF. And so it'll be between Russia and China. They'll go in and start lending developing countries money and offering very low interest loans and establishing influence and concessions.
I read about this competing World Investment Bank, and it looked like the U.S. was actually going to have a share in it and have a stake in it.
They will, because they can't do it without us.
Yeah, but the big idea was to dilute the influence of the U.S. in the world banking system by creating another bank where the U.S. could not possibly have a majority share in.
And this all goes back to gold reserves. And if you look at who are the largest gold importers in the world right now, you're looking at China, India, and Russia.
Yeah.
They're tired of the U.S. dollar dominating all transactions. And so what did we just have last week? A new deal where China and Russia are going to deal strictly in the Chinese currency.
Oh, that finally went through?
That went through.
Oh, man. So it's rubles and yuan.
Yes. So you're seeing a world where we're much like right now, we're in a we're not in a dangerous position.
And one of them's an oil country.
But we're in a position where the United States is Britain right at World War II.
Right.
We don't have the money and ability to dominate and influence like we used to, primarily because we're an aging economy. But China and Russia are older than we are demographically. That's the funny part. But they don't have the social programs. They don't have the world's largest military. We are realistically and militarily the world's last superpower.
I thought Russia they don't have a bigger military than us?
The United States, of the next 27 countries, or 26... We spend more than all of them combined, and 25 of them are allies.
Right.
If you take our Air Force, it's the largest Air Force in the world.
I was talking about numbers.
Yeah, well, I mean...
I meant like as far as...
I guess, military spending.
Take a bar graph like of military spending, and like the United States as a yardstick compared to like a quarter of a ruler.
I know we have more money than them.
It's crazy.
We spend more on it. It's unbelievable.
Well, the thing is, the world's largest Air Force is the U.S. Air Force, obviously. The second largest Air Force is the U.S. Air Force Boneyard, where we keep surplus aircraft.
Number 3?
Which is
Disney. Ironically, it's Disney.
Well, the thing about our Boneyard is it is still larger than every other Air Force in the world combined, minus the U.S. Air Force.
And so, like, the Chinese don't even have... They have a very minimal Air Force. They're really more focused on their Army and their Navy. Russia has an Air Force that's very... the Cold War... you saw Top Gun.
Yeah.
And
a little bit of GoldenEye.
Yeah, but Russia doesn't have the economy to support anything near us. So...
They don't have so much money to flush down the toilet.
They don't.
I bet they could make a plane out of old buildings and whatever's lying around, though.
Are they MacGyver all of a sudden?
That's what you want to go into
MacGyver.
The Spruce Goose Squad
to 500 miles an hour, darting through high pressurized situations is a duct taped together tailspin plane.
Well,
yeah, we're gonna have the
with a revolver.
We're gonna have the Russian Spruce Goose Squadron.
Yeah.
That's always been the Russian style, and they've gotten this far on it.
But a lot of it's all this boogeyman. Like anyone, there was a great piece actually on Joe Biden that I had sent to you and I just thought was so interesting. And Joe sat down with Dmitry Medvedev, who's the Medvedev. God, I always get it wrong.
Yeah.
And then several of the old USSR leaders, and he sat down and...
He's the Bush to Putin's Cheney.
Yeah. So he sits down with a group of these individuals, and God bless Joe Biden, he sits down, looks at everybody, and goes, let's be honest. We're the world's last superpower. No one's got military might, and no one has in the history of man like we do. So let's just put everything else to rest, and let's get this worked out. And you can't really argue with him.
No, you can't.
You can really argue, though. Did he actually say that? I want to know if he actually.
It seems awfully eloquent for one Joe Biden.
He's pretty blunt, though.
He told Vladimir Putin he didn't have a soul.
Right.
Right.
But it seems like one of those things that he'd say at a fundraiser. I looked at Vladimir Putin in the eye, and I told him that he didn't have a soul. if you said that, you would be poisoned to death by now. It's not like he wouldn't not poison the vice president of the United States.
It sounds like something George Edwards would say, you know.
But so, like, at 29, his first term, like, he's just the elected freshman senator from Delaware. He is sent with Khrushchev, sits down, and Khrushchev starts talking, and Joe Biden is not supposed to speak. Somehow he landed up on the Foreign Relations Committee.
Right.
And he looks at him and goes, "You can't shit a shitter." which is not even the right language, but it was so Joe Biden, it was perfect. And apparently the entire conversation steers towards him. And so, like, the point of this article was the author was amazed. He was with Joe Biden, had all this access, and every major world political leader called him Joe.
Really?
No one called him vice president, and like the guy could pick up the phone and call anyone. They all loved him.
Right.
It was amazing. Like these dictators, these ruthless dictators, just were like, "Joe, how are you, buddy?"
It's like the old Saturday Night Live with Saddam, Bill, and Monica. Oh, Monica, what are you doing?
Yeah. And
I mean, that guy's probably got charisma for days.
It's you know what it is? It's maybe not even charisma. It's authenticity. Joe is the most average individual.
I feel like
genuine.
I feel like you're explaining, or you're saying a lot of the things that people said about Bush.
No,
Bush is from the wealthiest family in the history.
Well, I
of the
mean,
United States.
just the mannerisms. You know, the mannerisms are very similar. You know,
They
the
are.
bluntness are very similar.
Joe is the Van Wilder of American politics. He's like Ryan Reynolds. You just want to be his friend.
Yeah, he finished second to last at University of Syracuse Law. Decides to run for Senate and wins.
Yeah.
Like, it's a story, and yet he's the only politician with a negative net worth in all of Washington.
Right.
It's incredible the amount, how inept he is, or how committed he is to being a public servant.
Charlie fucking Rangel has a beach house in the Cayman Islands, and Joe Biden's like...
Joe Biden's got a $300,000 mortgage on his Wilmington, Delaware house.
Wow.
He's so...
And no savings.
Yeah.
His wife teaches at a community college in Virginia. Like, it's amazing.
No kidding.
Yeah.
It's literally like
vice
Mr.
Yeah.
Smith. Yeah.
How much does he make a year? $400,000 like the
No,
president?
I think he
or
gets
less?
like $250, but he's been making a senator's salary for years. He's written books.
Man, you could. I mean, his mortgage is not much more than his yearly take home.
When he became vice president, it was a huge issue at his house in Delaware because it's so small. They had never dealt with this before, and they didn't know where to put the security. Like at Bush's complex and Cheney's ranch in Wyoming, I mean, they have space to build stuff, but at Joe's modest, basic home in Delaware, they were like they had to put like a little shack. It's like a little 5x5.
I could just
room,
picture
A Hawaiian ice stand is basically what they run
Shaved
the
ice.
intelligence out of.
I'm
You
picturing.
can stop Secret
Service?
Secret Service and Hawaiian shaved ice.
I'm picturing a suburban home with a guard shack at the end of the driveway. And
That's
one of these
exactly right.
Oh, just like a
Yeah.
really big
And like
mechanical arm to keep people from driving through
Yes.
into the driveway.
yes,
If
No
you grow-
kidding.
if
Not
you
even
grow-
a gate.
Uh-uh.
Not even a proper
Those
gate.
old homes in downtown Brownsburg, like the old downtown.
Yeah.
that's what his house is. It's maybe
No kidding.
1,700
the
square
So-
feet.
historical district.
Yeah.
So, like, if it were a house in Indiana on an equivalent sized land, it'd probably go for about $60,000 to $80,000.
It'd be like $110,000 house, like on 16th in Alabama.
No,
Yep.
no kidding.
It's but I mean,
And he owes $300,000 on it.
he owes negative $300,000 on because he tried to run for president last time and
Right.
Oh man, he's
And
going
it's-
to be one of these people who gets a reverse mortgage. and-
Yeah. Well, he probably couldn't.
Gonna
Oh,
sell
God.
all his fake jewelry to.
Hold
the
on, everybody
internet
be quiet.
or The TV.
Dear Jesus, I don't ask for much. Beautiful woman, a lot of money, and now Joe Biden doing reverse mortgage commercials on Fox News. That's all
Oh,
I'm asking.
man.
Simple request.
He and
Amen.
Montel could do some wonderful things together
Yeah,
on
during-
TV.
Maybe during some daytime TV.
Hi, I'm William Devane for Roslyn Capital,
Yeah,
and
you're-
I invest in gold.
You're watching Judge Judy or Judge Joe Brown or something.
Maybe some As the World Turns.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you see Joe Biden pushing reverse mortgages.
Sounds like an episode of the Peffers Afternoon.
Oh man,
All
That
right,
would be
so
amazing.
wrap up on Pooty Poop Poop.
So what's interesting to me is you have two very similar situations. You have two expansionist regimes. One driven by, and we finally have a general that admitted it and got it right. This isn't someone you rationalize with because they think the world ends a certain way and they're driving their system of governance towards it. And with Putin, it's a nationalistic thing.
Right.
And it's a dream he's had since he was a young boy and the entire reason he went into government service. So it's not like that's just going to be able to, like, hey, here's a few shekels. Why don't you just go away and stop taking over countries for a while?
Right.
That's not going to work.
Mm-mm.
So assume they're successful. Does the non-interventionist position, how do you respond? Because do you just ignore it until it's a problem for you?
The problem is war is very expensive, especially nowadays with all the urban warfare. The thing is, if somebody wants to try to take over the globe militarily, they're going to run out of money, especially somebody who doesn't have the largest military in the world. I'm not extremely concerned about Putin taking more or so much and squeezing the rest of us out. I think it's going to reach a steady state position.
It also presumes that Putin and ISIS will be successful, and we don't know that for certain. We don't know. It's a gamble. It's a risk.
Nothing.
It's so. What are you going to go into Iraq? Are you going to invade Iraq? Stay there for 10 years, lose thousands of soldiers, kill hundreds of thousands of Iraqis. And so it was a risk that Bush took going to war, and he made the problem worse. So it's like anything else. It's a game of chess. You don't know how it's going to turn out 15 moves down. If we did, we'd have all the answers.
But as a libertarian, do you say, you know what, that ain't my problem, bro, and you sleep easy?
Absolutely. Because I know
There's no other way to sleep.
It's just like, as much as I would love to give out free government money to help people on welfare, I know that if the government doesn't intervene in their life, they're going to be better off because at a certain point they're going to find self-sufficiency. And the problem with the Middle East for the last 100 years, since the fall of the Ottoman Empire, is that we keep intervening in their affairs and destabilizing their region, and this group of people who have common values, common religion, common economical assets are holding on to nation-states that were created by the West, and they haven't been able to establish governments for themselves, and they have to figure all this out.
But they have one now.
What?
ISIS.
ISIS?
The Islamic State.
For a small portion of the Muslim, that will be a viable solution. But at a certain point, they can't look at their enablers in the West to fund the Kurds, to fund. I mean, it's just like our economy. At some point, we could fail if we don't stop the behavior that we're currently going down with economic intervention in our markets. Do you just keep intervening and taking the Bernanke approach? Where you just throw more money at the problem because if we just do this enough, it'll save us. It's like the French right now; they dissolve their government because we've got to stop this austerity. It's slowing down the economy. It's hurting the economy. We've got to speed up and do more stimulus, and we can't be like the Germans, even though the Germans are successful. I mean, it's the non-interventionist philosophy is consistent with economic intervention, with personal intervention, with every other aspect of the libertarian philosophy, because if the United States government intervening in your personal life, in your economic life, and they can't get it right, what makes you think that they can go across the world and we can get it right by continually disrupting? These disruptions don't help, and it's only made things worse. And so as painful and as awful as the prospect of an ISIS mushrooming and becoming bigger and maybe taking over, let's say they take over Jordan, Syria, Iraq, and start to mushroom into Saudi Arabia, is Iran and Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, are they going to let that happen? I don't think so. I don't think, with as many resources as they have and as many moderates as there are, at some point there will be a civil war. There won't be a civil war if we're the enemy because we just keep putting our hand in their honeypot. So now we're just kind of delaying the inevitable. And we have been delaying the inevitable forever. And I hate to say that because it means that there's going to be a severely bloody conflict. Just like if we keep intervening in the economy, eventually we just run out of money and we collapse. Or if we keep building the welfare state, eventually we collapse because we're just enabling a whole generation of people who are on welfare because we keep intervening in their lives and they never figure it out for themselves.
But isn't that assumption that ISIS or one of the bad governments is going to lose?
Of course. But, again, it's presuming that if we get involved, the good guys are going to win. We don't know one way or the other.
Another thing is ruling is a lot different than conquest, and that has a tendency to change a lot of goals of organizations.
Sure. If the United States had, well, look at the difference between Bush 1 and Bush 2. You know, George Bush goes in, he beats back Saddam Hussein, but he doesn't go for regime change. And the guy is enjoying, you know, super high approval ratings. And had he not raised taxes, he would have been reelected.
Or Ross Perot doesn't run.
Yeah, he would have won steadily. But why did Ross Perot run? Because of taxes and read my lips and all that. You know, so it was his own darn fault.
NAFTA.
There. NAFTA was
NAFTA.
Clinton more than anything, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, I know, but that was being drafted then.
Yeah, so Bush W goes in, invades, commits regime change, and look where we're at now. You know, so it just intervention doesn't. The results are in. It's just like economic intervention. The results are in, and we can just continue to ignore the results and keep heading down the same path and doing the same thing over and over and over, or we can try it our way. Because it seemed to work really well for this country for the first, 100 years? In the second 100 years, not as much. So
I just feel like we have a bit of a responsibility in the region because we've destabilized it.
And I think that just poking the hornet's nest with a stick more times because you did it before is not going to...
that seems to me to...
that destability.
To me, that sounds like an easy, convenient talking point to convince somebody, like...
I don't mean it that way.
I know you don't.
But what if we can further destabilize it? We just keep pushing and pushing. Yeah.
It's like saying... It's like the argument that if we stop Bernanke's stimulus... the economy will collapse and everything will grind to a halt because you started it. Now you can't stop quantitative easing.
No, the economic collapse is just a result of the fact that we are in a fiat-based currency controlled by a ambiguously private or public bank.
Oh, is it?
But I mean that's I guess kind of my criticism of it is let's let the economy naturally correct. Like that's the right thing to do. I'll admit it. Anyone can admit it. That doesn't do a lot for the guy that loses his job, can't feed his family, and all of a sudden is devastated and will turn to the very first person that rises up and starts having someone to blame.
I don't see things going that way. We are a liberated people, and once a people is liberated, they cannot be enslaved. One of the things...
Really?
We're enslaved right now.
We realize it, though. We're pushing back. You look at your news feeds lately in Facebook, people are pissed. I mean, people are not sitting down and just taking it. And I think the thing is we're at a point where we've got, especially with this millennial generation, we are willing to switch currencies without the permission of the federal government if we have to. I think that's going to be our saving grace. If government stops providing for us, we will provide for ourselves. And that's what it's going to have to come down to.
Right. And so in the absence of government enabling... self-sufficiency rises. And I understand the you broke it, you bought it mentality, but at some point you just can't keep doing the same thing over and over and over. It's killing us. It's killing them. It's just...
Oh, for sure. But I guess my question is, it almost seems like we've learned a lesson. That Putin was in fact right in Syria, that as awful as Assad was, that's stability. Because right now, clearly we're cooperating with him. Is that the best you can hope for?
I mean, the thing...
I mean, but let's look at that question. Is Assad better than ISIS? Who is determining that Assad is better than ISIS? Both are murdering the same innocent people. and both are maniacs killing.
One's secular.
Sure, and one doesn't have apocalyptic notions.
One's a rationalist.
A pragmatist, yes. But still, the end result, just because the means are different, the end result is still dead people.
Oh, it is, but those dead people that were political dissidents wanted to instill ISIS or wanted to instill a theocratic regime.
Sure, but at what point, if you support stability, if you support Saddam Hussein, if you support the king of Saudi Arabia, if you support these in finances and resources, at what point are you morally complicit?
One thing I think we need to pay attention to, though, is that there's really no such thing as absolution, especially in this circumstance. The best thing we could do is just do the best thing going forward.
I mean, we have to put it in terms of morality, too, and that's sort of what we kind of miss as libertarians. We talk about, especially on this podcast, and maybe other podcasts that do a better job of talking about it. I mean...
What? There are no better podcasts.
That's right. Thank you, Peffers.
This is the only podcast.
That's right.
Look
What's
it
it
up
called?
on iTunes. We will be the only one listed under podcasts.
Right. Screw you, Adam Carolla. And Bob and Tom Podcast. Go get Bob and Tom Podcast, please. I beg you.
They will shut me down.
Yeah. If you want We Are Libertarians to continue, because you aren't donating, trust me, I know. Go support bobandtom.com.
Yeah, Bob and Tom, they are big names in this state.
They're financiers of We Are Libertarians. So, I guess the morality of it, too. I mean, I wouldn't steal from Peffers, so I don't want an agent to steal for me. I wouldn't murder Greg Lynn, so I don't want an agent to murder for me. And by giving guns to Assad, by giving money to ISIS, we're morally responsible for what continues to happen. You know, and where do you draw that line? And I guess, you know, you were all about pragmatism. You were all about, you know, realism, where I look at it a little more...
I want liberty to thrive.
Sure.
And I think anytime an organization like ISIS wins, anytime there's economic disarray, liberty dies.
But the alternative is Assad in that region currently.
Sure. But under Assad, he's a secularist dictator to an extent.
Well, the problem is you're talking about collapses in infrastructure. Like the fall of the Roman Empire, whether you had a government in the area or not, you were destabilized because there were no longer the supply chains keeping you fed. There were no longer the soldiers keeping you protected. Even if there was government, those soldiers were gone. They were gone because of external factors.
I mean,
and internal factors.
Saddam was just a more stable prison. You know, if you look at Egypt freed themselves from a totalitarian prison, and the government developed into something that was not what they were fighting for, and they dissolved it. And it will continue over and over and over until they figure
dissolved
it out.
it.
Well, yeah. Good point.
We dissolved
Again.
it. And so because we did, and we propped up a technocratic ruler, Coptic Christians, individuals who probably believe a different way than under Sharia law, who like to have the occasional medicinal marijuana cigarette, who like to have the occasional beer.
Why are you looking over there at those two?
Who like to have the occasional beer, don't have to worry about being flogged or being imprisoned. I just feel like that's a better outcome than a democratically elected Muslim Brotherhood implementing Sharia law.
The problem is
For liberty, period.
I don't know how many alternatives there are to that at this point.
To what?
To ISIS taking control. I mean, how do we intervene to prevent ISIS from taking control or some other organization that's even worse?
You cripple them economically. You're never going to beat ISIS by bombing
If you
them.
cripple them economically, then that means you're punishing the people, not the leaders. The
No,
leaders
not
have their
necessarily.
money.
I mean, you put pressure on the Europeans to stop paying bribes, which is an uncomfortable thing, but
The
that's
problem
how
is
they fund.
these bribes are due to the fact that oil is being sold from them. And working jobs in the supply chain has taught me that people in the supply chain are constantly pressured to keep things moving. Like when I was a truck driver and I was hauling a load of diapers to a small town in Ohio or something. I mean, that might be small town's only source of diapers for the next few weeks. And if I'm late, then there could very easily be a diaper shortage in the area. We don't normally encounter these because our supply chains are sufficiently advanced to prevent these shortages from happening all too often. The more remote you get, the bigger these shortages are. But why that happens is because you've got people who are bending the rules, breaking the rules, and making sure that no matter what happens, there is something to buy if somebody has money to buy it. And that's you can't. And oil's a very important commodity to do that with. You stop the supply of oil, then suddenly people starve, and it happens very quickly.
And then they blame those in charge.
Mm-hmm.
It would be ISIS.
Yeah.
So, like, I look at it.
So,
we only really have one country we can look at that's sort of like the sample. So there was one world power that had so this is where I always disagree with Maya and voluntarists and anarchists and anarcho-capitalists, is that we can look at one country that was a world power whose currency collapsed and what happened after. The Weimar Republic. Where were all the libertarians seizing the day of no self-rule? Instead, it was a charismatic.
You got to remember
German
that
leader.
Hold on, let him finish.
Oh, sorry.
It was a charismatic German leader that rose to power, had somebody to blame, slaughtered millions of them, and instilled a tyrannical state because people couldn't eat. It's not like everybody's going to be kumbaya, we're going to farm the land and be organic and soy. In this country, we don't even go to stores unless they have a drive-through, let alone have to grow our own food.
I think you're overgeneralizing. There's a huge culture of self-reliance developing. If you ever go to Instructables.com, you'll see the market for
the tens and tens of people who go to Instructables.com.
Oh man, no.
In libertarian circles, maybe, but
no,
I'm talking
it's
about
more than libertarian circles. It's millennials in general. And, a lot of baby boomers
there is a
are on board with it,
subculture
too.
developing, but you cannot deny that the majority of people don't have 2 days' worth of food in their fridge.
The thing is, though, people are learning. Ideas and knowledge accumulate over time, which was the point I was going to make earlier before I rudely interrupted Mr.
Fine.
Lenz.
You're fine.
Yeah, the thing is, ideas and knowledge accumulates over time. The Weimar Republic was in its destabilized state because if you're a bunch of people who are encountering all these economic difficulties and you have no knowledge of economics available to you, you're gonna panic. These days, knowledge of economics is at your fingertips. Knowledge of how to provide for yourself is at your fingertips. You might have to run into a few bad months, but most people can figure out how to run a garden and figure out how to get enough food out of there to supplement.
But it doesn't do it overnight.
It doesn't happen overnight, no. But there are a growing number of people who are learning these things. Our food supply system is decentralizing. It may be becoming less efficient because we're starting to drift away from that factory farm mentality. But as we decentralize our food supply, it has fewer sites of vulnerability. If one site ends up in turmoil, then there are other redundancies in the system to provide for that.
So continue, Greg.
But so, like, in this case, you would still say it's a very small, like, of U.S. population total.
But growing very quickly.
But, like, what size would you say? That people are completely self-sustainable?
Oh, completely? Not yet, and that's actually a fool's errand to be completely self-sustainable.
I bought organic food today, but I bought it at Meijer. I'm still dependent on the same exact place. I mean, the supply chain of food.
You have brought up an example of what I would call anecdotal evidence.
No, but I think that's very common. Most people don't get their food from a farmer's market or from the...
Meijer gets their produce locally, though.
Touché.
Which means that the supply chain stays intact.
What are you going to buy it with? The U.S. dollar's empty. You're going to barter?
Well, you've got
Meijer would
Bitcoin,
probably
you've got
barter
gold
with
and
you.
silver, you've got copper.
Meijer's closed.
Yeah, Meijer's looted.
No, the thing is, these bad things don't happen overnight. That's one thing I take issue with preppers is they assume that there's going to be one singular disaster, in which case they're going to be able to kick in their plan at just the right moment and things are going to go hunky-dory. The problem is a lot of these disasters can happen very cumulatively. Like right now, our food prices are steadily increasing. At the moment, I've noticed some prices are starting to drop. My brother's keyed me in on a few of those. But the thing is...
Purple Kush.
No,
No,
he works at Meijer.
I work at Meijer. I set the prices.
You do?
Yeah. So.
Well, hello, new friend.
But the big thing,
I'll let you know if good stuff's going on clearance in Zionsville.
Oh, yeah.
but I mean, the thing is, we've got a system where we're building lots of redundancies where things are being sourced locally, and we've got alternate currencies we could work off of. We have alternate ledger systems, and more importantly,
We do.
the genie is out of the bottle with cryptocurrencies, and if one fails, all we have to do is invent another better one.
We do. The problem is that because we're in the echo chamber and we're in libertarian Reddit and we're in our information silo where this is more common, this ain't normal. This is not the majority.
It's not the majority, but
The
it's the growing
majority is
minority.
dependent on the government.
It's the growing minority at this point. The problem is the millennial.
collapse like Somalia.
All right, well, we got to wrap up.
Well, my whole point is of this whole thing was that stability is good for liberty. Chaos, regime change, anytime there's an overthrow in the ability for economic transactions to be conducted and scarcity becomes an issue, liberty dies.
Yeah,
I
but
don't know.
the genie is out of the bottle when it comes to the Middle East. There is no stability that can be had there. The Arab Spring, the destabilization of the entire region is going to continue. And you can throw as much money as you'd like at all these American dollars.
Well, you can beat ISIS by supporting the Ba'ath generals.
Okay.
I mean, it's Saddam all over.
How do you support?
You reach out to them directly, and they install a secular dictatorship.
Meaning you give them weapons, you give them money.
You take the weapons that the Iraqi army threw down and joined ISIS.
I bet some of them carried their weapons over to ISIS, though.
They did, yeah. But I'm just saying that is how ISIS may end up falling down. But if you want stability and you want to beat ISIS, it's like I said when that whole thing was going on with Assad. We were going to support Assad silently, and we were going to fund the rebels.
I think they're.
It's a year later.
Right.
I think they're going to slow.
We're gonna be forced a point where we're gonna either have to recognize ISIS as a real movement and a real threat in that region to destabilization. And right now, the easiest way to pick them off is to pick off all of Saddam's old generals that are helping him win, because that's the inevitable fight. Is it going to be the Ba'aths or is it going to be the Islamic State?
Oh, we could just start arming.
Get them now. I know it's horrible and it's not libertarian and anything, but it's the option that's on the table.
We could just start enrolling rebel groups into the 1033 program.
All right. Let's start. Yes, let's start sending, instead of to Ferguson PD, we'll send our unused MRAPs
I think you
to
could. I think
freedom fighters overseas.
I think you could reroute the packages using the FedEx app.
That's right. All right. Well, we want to hear from you. Go to the Facebook page. And
really do want to
leave us a comment. We want to hear, because you can hear the struggles that we have with, and that's part of the show, is that we don't have all the answers. We don't arrogantly tell you what you should think. We just try to give you as many facts and wrestle with the questions. Well, yes, you and Maya.
Some of us do.
Right. Maya, you're wrong, or you will kneel before her and accept truth. Okay?
That sounded provocative.
It did. Oh, it is.
She doesn't scare me. Come on the show, Maya.
I did another episode of Creating Maya where I talk with Maya about her transition. It's a very open, honest discussion about it.
Oh, is it with Maya?
Very interesting. Go to iTunes and look up Creating Maya. MIAH. So we want to hear from you. So you hear the struggle that we have with, applying non-interventionism, because I have spent the whole week going and trying to find libertarian resources that talk about non-interventionism. I've ended up having to go to places like the Council on Foreign Relations to find any kind of information about, ISIS and non-interventionism and what's happening there and foreign policy. And when I go to so many of these libertarian resources, it's, we told you so. If you had just stayed out of it 30 years ago, this wouldn't be happening, or 10 years ago, and it's a failure, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, that doesn't really help me now in any way, shape, or form.
That's ditto talk.
Yeah.
That's ditto speak.
So it's, and these are esteemed libertarians who are just giving you the I told you so. So
Captain Hindsight.
So we really want to try and find the facts and wrestle with those a little bit. So what would you do if you were President Obama and you were having these array of options? I think that Dan and I gave you an array of options, and then Greg gave you a different set of options. Roger Paxton will be thrilled to hear this podcast, I'm sure. So please write on the Facebook wall or send us a Facebook message, and we'll talk about this a little bit next episode. If you've made it this far. So let's wrap up, ladies and gentlemen. Let's start with the lovely lady in the brown T-shirt at the far end. Is there anything you'd like to promote that you've missed, that you'd like to talk about? Briefly, go.
I just want everyone to know how comfortable this couch is in Spangel's apartment. It's pretty sweet.
Listen, I'm built for comfort, not for speed, my friend.
Yeah, no, I would expect nothing less.
When it comes to relaxing, no one does it better than me.
There are sports cars and there are land yachts.
That's right. And I, my friends, am a yacht.
I've been almost melting into this couch.
Isn't
the
it?
entire
We can
time.
tell you could take. We can tell you take pride in it.
In my grand luxury apartment with all my fine things.
It is a
not
nice
bad
apartment,
looking in here.
and he's got the air conditioning on an awesomely cold temperature.
65 degrees.
It looks like an adult decorated it.
And I'm a little warm at 65. I got all this furniture on clearance.
Good.
But you can't tell. That's a pull-out couch. So
it's new furniture by the sound of it. If you're saying you got it on clearance, that means it's new, not curb furniture like what I
despite being
get.
a luxury apartment, my TV stand is a little lacking. It's a cheap $14 Costco card table.
It is, yeah. It's something you eat TV dinners off of.
Yeah, if you want to swank it up, you might want to go wall mounted, but that's just me.
Right. I want to show the ladies that I haven't lost my touch with the common man. Or woman.
Yeah, you need a TV in your room or in your apartment, or else you kind of look like a serial killer when people come over.
I don't have a TV. I just read books.
What do you do with your time,
missed the
brood?
Netflix train.
Yeah. All right. So thank you for complimenting my apartment. You can come back. Dan?
Oh, I'm coming back.
Let's hear how you'd like to return. What compliment do you have for me?
I believe I just complimented you. I was part of that barrage of compliments.
That's right.
Now
All
it's
right.
time to promote stuff.
All right.
Now that I've
Greg?
sucked up to you.
Greg, get working on the compliments. Daniel, go.
All right. I would love to promote my Twitter account at Daniel Peffers. Feel free to follow me. Sometimes I update it, and it's a pleasure when I do. I also have an article coming out soon. It's going to cover debating with well-meaning leftists about cutting social programs and education programs and whatnot without coming across as a total blue hair. So keep an eye out for that. I put a lot of work into it.
You've used this word blue hair twice tonight. What is this phrase that you're trying to introduce to the vernacular? What does it mean?
Blue hair is just something I've heard that I've really, really enjoyed and decided to try to spread the term. But a blue hair is somebody who is so white that the hair on their head looks almost blue.
It's like a term for old people.
Yeah, just the establishment Republicans and whatnot. You know,
all right.
Your Creighton Harringtons and your John McCains.
He's taking old phrases and making them new again.
Yeah.
right.
That's just the
Call
kind.
that retro.
Yeah.
I'm an anarchist. I go by the beat of my own drum.
Greg?
What I was just looking at you at is we have confirmation that ISIS is operating in Juarez.
Mexico?
Right now, lead story on Drudge.
No,
Really? Well, that's not good.
Who confirmed it?
Judicial Watch.
Do you think that they're working with the local cartels?
I believe that would be the smartest thing to do.
Yeah, and they're probably those guys are working with the ATF.
Those
so
guys aren't-
See, to put it into perspective,
Islamists.
though, like we could all say that we're part of ISIS now, and then Drudge can put on the headline that like there's a cell of ISIS fighters in
Yeah,
South
that's what I'm
Korea.
wondering about.
And we're probably more likely to be on the government's watch list than anyone in ISIS in the United
Sure.
States.
No offense to our listeners who are Drudge fans.
So it's sort of like I'm in the Libertarian gang.
It was
Well,
written by Andrew McCarthy at National Review.
All right, I'll give him.
You
some
gotta
free-
It's not the Inquirer.
right.
You gotta love anybody named McCarthy.
Yeah, he will root out the truth, or else.
And the last thing that I think is interesting is Scottish independence. That's going to be coming up, and that is. I read a really interesting article that it would be the last nail in the coffin of the phrase "the sun never sets" on the British Empire, because essentially it'd just be England.
Yeah,
Not necessarily. There's still plenty of commonwealths, and
There's Wales, right?
Yeah,
well, there's all sorts of island systems. The Falkland Islands, the
Nobody gives two shits
the,
about
uh,
those.
Scotland
Australia's-
actually has more islands
As soon as
than
I said
England.
there's whales, it just sounded stupid coming out of my mouth.
So I mean,
what is that, a city?
I haven't heard that talked about by libertarians at all, but I think it's pretty funny to watch. Have you watched any of the debates or anything?
No.
It'll be big news soon because
the
people are serious about
The
it.
central, like, essentially gotcha moment was over currency.
Really?
That's what the entire debate turned on, is they assumed they were going to be able to use the English pound. And the debater for the United Kingdom said, no, we will not allow that.
They should do whatever other broke European countries do and get on the euro and ride on Germany's back.
Yeah,
Right.
mooch off Germany.
Yeah.
That'd be liberty-oriented, wouldn't it?
Mooch
But-
off of Germany.
But
That
you're getting
works.
ready to break for independence, and their first thought, how can we set up a government that looks exactly like the one we're just leaving and can even use their currency?
Yeah.
Pretty hilarious. And the instinct of civilization is liberty.
Right.
They're on the right track. They just don't have everything right yet.
All right. I've got two. The first one is very predictable. The other is shocking. Would you like predictable or shocking?
Predictable first.
All right. Predictable is I joined Liberty.me today.
No.
Jeffrey Tucker's social...
I accepted your
social
friend request.
You did? You threatened to block me.
I accepted you. And I tagged you in a post and said I thought I was being catfished.
I am really impressed with Liberty.me. It looks great. It functions great. You know, it's not annoying. And for social media, anytime somebody starts a social network, 9 times out of 10, it's just annoying. Like, Ning sites, those are annoying.
The people are annoying because they're libertarians. The
Right.
actual structure of the site is very sound.
It's fantastic. I couldn't recommend it enough. They've got a summer sale going on right now. It's $7 a month, but you get the first month free. So check it out. Try it free for a month. I get nothing out of this endorsement. Just want to see Jeffrey Tucker succeed with it. It really is great. I mean, people are publishing a lot of really smart articles. There's free ebooks. There's Liberty guides. I think there's a free component. You can join the social network. You don't have to pay for it.
and we're going to have one on there. I just have to write it.
Yeah, I'm going to start wearelibertarians.liberty.me. You can go follow Greg Lins and myself. Ironically, the biggest Tucker fan out of all of us is Joe Ruiz, and he's not on it. So we're calling you out, Joe. We're putting you on.
You know why?
Because he's explain why.
And you think that people are going to grow their own food? Joe, a libertarian congressional candidate, won't join Liberty.me because he'd rather spend the money on the WWE. So you want to talk about people growing food? The guy that is running as a libertarian won't even join the most preeminent libertarian platform on the internet.
$10 a month expendable income, and it's going to men in tights sweating on each other as they wrestle on the
The
ground.
WWE is living comic books, all right.
That's
They are
actually
living comic
I'm not
Kinda
saying.
true.
I'm not
And plus,
saying
a lot of libertarians got some great starts in the WWE.
And I'm not
Jesse
saying
Ventura.
that there's anything wrong with WWE or in any
Right.
way, shape, or form. I'm saying that look how little we are willing to give towards liberty. That
Right.
even our most favorite hobbies can't be burdened.
I think it's because we aren't used to paying for social media. If the idea catches on, it'll be a
You
success.
will rationalize anything.
That's what I attempt
Call
to
a
do.
spade a spade. Joe hates liberty. Shame him into joining.
You know,
Never
and-
trust a Democrat.
Hey,
right?
while you're breaking out your wallet for Liberty, Chris Spangle at gmail.com is my PayPal. I just dropped $100 on the website today, actually, because we're going to do a little website redesign. We're going to do a little YouTube upgrades. We're going to get crazy with things. So dropped a little more coin. This thing it doesn't cost me too much in the grand scheme of things, but you know, these things, shouldn't they make you money, Chris Peffers? When you work as hard as I have this year on We Are Libertarians,
I
shouldn't
think
it
you
make you money?
You gotta come up with like
Stop
an ice
laughing.
bucket challenge, you know?
Yes, we need.
You shouldn't be
everyone
anti-tax
donate
if you're the president of something.
$30.
That's your first mistake.
Or
I am-
smash your hand with a hammer.
As the president of all libertarians, everyone who is listening to this right now, I am imposing a $10 a month tax on you. Go to my PayPal.
Shocking.
Shocking. I have a shocking announcement.
oh, yes.
I'm going to praise
Wait,
Canada.
let me get... Oh, I wasn't at the edge of my seat yet.
Okay. It took you a while. Are you all right?
I was moving.
You're moving a little slow tonight.
It's a comfortable couch.
What's wrong? Are you okay? Are you under the influence of anything?
It's a comfortable couch.
All right.
You could get some serious couch glue on this thing.
And in fact, I'm going to praise Canada's military.
What?
Their tweet to Russia, Canada's NATO Twitter feed, snarkily tweeted out, this is how serious their military is. The biggest damage they've done towards Russia this week was a snarky tweet. It was a picture of Russia and the Ukraine, and they said, here's a handy guide for Putin. Russia, not Russia. I guess it's visual, you had to be there, but I thought it was pretty funny.
Yep, that sounds shocking.
Right. So you'll have to go look it up.
That had to be the meanest thing that's ever been said in the history of that country.
They immediately...
Sorry.
They immediately called the foreign ministry of Russia, asked Putin to join Twitter so they could tweet at him and say sorry.
Is it true that you've been asked to be Captain Canuck in the Marvel creation?
No, let me tell you, you make a few hundred anti-Canada jokes. One person ironically says that you're Canadian, and then it turns into this whole thing where now anytime anything ever on the internet is mentioned Canadian, oh, this must be Chris Spangles. He's drinking his maple syrup, eh? He must say sorry a lot. I'm not Canadian. I never have been Canadian, nor do I want to be Canadian. In fact, I don't even hate Canada. The whole thing is a bit.
Nothing cements a joke like getting defensive about it.
I am defensive about it because it drives me up a wall now. I can't open Facebook without some sort... It's okay when you do it.
Don't feed the trolls, man.
Because Greg is artful in the way that he mocks me. Every time I see Greg Lenz has tagged you on a post on my notifications on my phone, I immediately break into cold
You're
sweats.
feeding the trolls, man.
But
you're feeding
It's usually
the trolls.
about cats.
Yeah, but that's, neither here nor there. But, the joke is...
You've become Mr. Canada.
The joke is that it's stupid to hate other nations just because they're another nation. It's a joke about nationalities and nationalism and basically making fun of all the conservatives who make fun of, like, we got to get these Mexicans to speak English, eh? So, like, that's why...
We gotta get these Mexicans to speak English.
I think people in Wisconsin.
I think we need to start Ustreaming this and letting everybody see this because this is getting funny.
So, like, that's why the whole joke was started to begin with. Because at the end of the show, we know nobody makes it to this point. You're a hardcore listener if you make it to this point. So this is when we let you into the behind the scenes of We Are Libertarians. It's a joke. We're making fun of people.
The whole thing is a joke. This
Right.
whole thing.
All of it. Believe me, when we get to heaven...
We just spent 3 hours on a joke.
Right.
It's like the aristocrats.
Right. All right. Well, we're going to... I'm not even going to say what I was going to say. I'll tell you off here. All right, guys. Thank you for listening to Weird Libertarians. Spread the word. Share it with your friends. Tell them to listen to at least the first 45 minutes. That's worth their time. The rest is pure crap. So next week, we promise
To do better next time.
music for We Are Libertarians is provided by Hoosier musician Brian Keith Wallen. Please check out his website, briankeithwallen.com. The song is Bad Spell.